son. Where'd you find this?
Buckle up, buttercups. It's time to get down to business. Oh, yeah. It's the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. Totally legit.
All right, everybody. It's the Totally Legitimate Business, and we're back here again. Today, we've got Mr. Adam Peters of the Strategic Veteran, someone who went from military service to military service and veteran service. Welcome to the show, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Dude, it's a pleasure to be here. Super grateful you wanted to have me on, man, and I'm excited to dive into this.
You know, I read your story, and I was immediately super excited to hear your details, because I have a ton of friends who've served in the military, some of whom who have come back with great success, others who have not come back with great success. And I think you coming out of the service and then doubling down and recommitting to serving service members is just huge. And I think it's something that should be highlighted. So I just want you to kind of give my listeners a brief overview of what you do and how you got started doing it.
Yeah, man. Essentially what I do is I try to appeal to transitioning and transition veterans and teach them how to live better lives, kind of in a nutshell. That's really what I'm trying to do. I do that through my podcast, The Strategic Veteran, kind of showcasing the path back to purpose being through entrepreneurship, where we bring on veteran entrepreneurs who are either building businesses or have successful businesses. I just recorded a podcast yesterday with a guy who's a multimillionaire in real estate and the jewelry industry, and now he's a highly sought after kind of really top tier business coach. And then I have a community called The Stronghold, where the idea behind it is to be the antithesis of Facebook groups, where transitioning veterans in general can come. They can get actionable advice, be vulnerable, admit what they're going through, what their struggles are, whether that be mental health, physical fitness, emotional problems, business problems, whatever that looks like. They can post in the community about it and get actionable advice and feedback from members in the community without getting ripped to shreds and embarrassed like you do on Facebook groups.
Dude, it's amazing. What do you think is like the biggest threat to any, regardless of if they inherited PTSD or a life-changing, like a body change? What do you think is like the biggest threat to people coming out of service and like reacquainting with society right now?
Themselves.
Really?
Yeah, man. It's really about opening your mind, getting out of the fixed mindset that the military kind of keeps you in, which is necessary to do the job and have, the standing military that we have. But it's often that agnostic approach to, I can do this all by myself. I'm a soldier, or whatever branch you come out of, just being in your own way, not having that tunnel vision and just kind of opening your mind to all the possibilities that are out there, and really, I keep saying it, getting out of your way and understanding that there are better ways to do things. There are tools that have been kept secret from us, that have not been shown to us, that truly do make our lives better.
Now, I definitely want to get into that, because that sounds like a whole super interesting thread. But I kind of just want to hear about like what was what led you to starting this whole podcast in the community? Like, what was your experience that you were like, we need this, and if no one's doing it, I will do it?
Yeah, man. So for me, I spent about 8.5 years in what I call the transition hole. So that deep, dark place where you feel sorry for yourself. You wake up every day. You don't know why you're alive, what you're contributing to society or to life in general. You're just really just kind of a fat fuck sitting around, not exercising, scrolling, one of the countless social media apps that are out there, or analysis paralysis on YouTube. So I started doing everything I'm doing because I wanted to help me. I wanted to help the person that I was, and kind of quickly realized that, you said it kind of at the beginning of the show, I doubled down on being a leader. I enjoyed being a leader in the Army. I don't necessarily give myself enough credit for being a good leader. I never really thought I was a good leader. I think that I have enough people behind me that I still mentor that are still into this day that would tell you that's contrary to what I believe. But I knew getting out, because I was med boarded, so I didn't make it to 20 years. I made it to 12 and a half, almost 13 years, which really kind of set me down the spiral, because I was a career guy. I wanted to hang on to that career.
You were looking forward to it, yeah.
Yeah, but for me, that bitterness, I kind of knew stepping away from the Army that I always wanted to find my way back to leadership and really leading soldiers. And it's kind of unique how that works out, right? Like, I'm in this position now where I get to lead more than just soldiers. I get to lead all branches of the military and just kind of be that vulnerable, authentic example for what you can accomplish if you get out of your own way.
Well, and you bring up an interesting point. Like, a lot of the things that the military trains you are necessary, and they're purely for the compartmentalization and survival instincts.
Absolutely.
In a battlefield. Like, it makes complete sense. But do you think, have you seen or witnessed with the people coming out, is there like a shift in the military now that, like, maybe mental health is a little less stigmatized than it was? Do you think that's even like a conversation that the military is having?
I'm so removed from it. You got to remember, I've been out almost a decade. It'll be 9 years in November. So sure. Everything has changed so much since I got out, and it's a machine, right? So it's always changing. I think the problems remain the same. I think until something changes with the way the military prepares you and really the resources they give you to transition, until that's been completely overhauled, I think we're going to continue to see the same problems. I don't really think that, I mean, maybe in some aspects, the mental health stuff being more on the forefront, more of a concern, being paid more attention to than when I was in, and the stigma around it starting to leave, we're starting to call attention to it. Yeah, I think that's going to make a difference. But overall, we're institutionalized. It's no different than, I don't want to compare it to being in prison, but like, it's kind of like being in prison. You don't have to be a real adult. You know what I mean? Like, for the most part, 90% of your life is structured in a way that you don't have a lot to worry about, particularly if you're on a deployment or overseas somewhere, right, in some kind of training exercise for more than you're not worried about what's for dinner. You're not worried about paying these bills and how am I going to get to work tomorrow, right? Because that's all done for you. You know what your hard times are, all that stuff. So being institutionalized and then kind of just forced out the door to just like really just stand there with your dick in your hand and like try and figure it out. Like that's really what it is. They're just like, hey, thanks for serving. You were a number. We don't really give a shit about you. Bye.
Right. Should just churn you out.
Yeah. And sorry, I have a foul mouth, man. So I apologize to the listeners and you.
Completely. This is a foul place for sure. There's no censorship in that respect. What do you think are some things that you learned in the military that you didn't expect to benefit you in civilian life, but actually really benefit you in civilian life? I
think everything, man. I call them the high leverage skills, right? So we're talking about discipline, we're talking about leadership, problem solving, adaptability. All of those things combined, you really don't realize when you come in that you're developing those from day one, right? Like day one, it starts. And then over your career, of course, leadership's a big piece of that, right? To get promoted to the next rank, you take on more responsibility. You learn from the guy in front of you and probably another job in front of you to try and be that better leader. You're always paying attention. Everything's constantly changing. There's a reason we have operations orders and then we have fragmented operations orders, which just means a change to the original operation order. There's probably 100 for any op order that comes out. You have 100 fragos that go with it. So that problem solving, that adaptability in the changes that are being made. It's a machine that's constantly changing, constantly evolving, and so you're developing those skills. You're getting used to that. And it's not unheard of to be out on a patrol and it's like, hey, frago, you're going over here now, not carrying out the regular mission, and it's just a little grumble here and just kind of move out and go on about your way. And I think that if you can lean into all of those, particularly like for me, the foundation of everything is discipline. Discipline's the only thing I've ever had in my life that will never let me down, that will always be there for me, that I can always 100%. Count on. And so if you really lean into those when you get out and you stay true to those things instead of, the route that I took, it's like, oh man, I can't wait to get out. I got my DD-214, no more PT. We're not doing, formations anymore. Like, you really are just kind of standing there lost because you spent this entirety of your adult life in this structure and leaning on those skills, and then you want to abandon all of those when you get out to try and reinvent yourself, and you're like, well, maybe I should keep some of these things and like really lean into them to find my way in the civilian world. So I would say that's probably like the one mistake that people make. They get overzealous. They think that they're going to reinvent themselves completely, and move a completely different direction and discover something, and they abandon those things that I think are so essential, for everybody.
I couldn't agree more. Watching my friends who did go and serve come back, like the ones that really thrived were kind of doing the same thing. Just whatever they decided to do when they got back, they just relied on their discipline. And they knew that if I pick something and I just show up to it every single day, this can be my new mission.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true, man. And I didn't do that. I didn't do that for a long, long time.
And was there something else that kind of started this, or was the vision immediately, I need to start Strategic Veteran?
No, man. Dude, like I said, I spent, I was medically retired in November of 2015, and it wouldn't be until July of 2023 that I would have my awakening. And
wow,
it took a very generous veterans charity and Heroic Hearts Project to send me to Peru to do a week-long ayahuasca retreat to change my life. And I credit them with saving my life. I credit them for everything that I have. It's still my goal. I don't know what's going on with it. I came back from that. I went and got a psychedelic integration and addiction recovery coaching certification so that I could become a coach with Heroic Hearts Project to give back. And still waiting to hear back from them on that. That's kind of the ultimate goal with that. But so much credit to them for changing my life and doing it in an alternative way. Not going to the VA and getting pills, because I knew that was just another road I didn't want to go down. I watched too many of my buddies do that and become zombies and still try to kill themselves.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to necessarily get into the VA, but it's not doing what it should do. Like many government institutions, branches, agencies, they really fall very flat on their mark. But I'm wondering, were you a hard sell on ayahuasca? And was it something was it a point of desperation, or was it something you had kind of been looking into?
So, yeah, man, that's a really interesting question. So I really like to tell the story behind how I got into this. So I was in a really dark place, like I said, just, way overweight, lazy, sitting around, just not motivated to do anything, bouncing from opportunity to opportunity, job to job, whatever that looks like. Just really couldn't put my finger on what was making me happy, just kind of miserable. And when I got out of the Army, I went to flight school, thought that was my dream, quickly learned that in order to fly professionally, there's a lot of dues you have to pay, and I wasn't willing to pay them. I didn't want to float around out there in a little practice box with students to build hours to get to the airlines. I really just didn't like the idea of working for somebody. So I finished flight school, got my degree like they try to tell you to do, got my bachelor's in business and psychology from Choose Your Own Adventure School, which was actually kind of a really cool experience we could get into later if you want.
No, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'd love to hear about that.
But after I finished my bachelor's, a program called Voc Rehab, they give you a little extra money while you're searching for a job because they helped me finish my degree, monetarily or whatever, with some of the benefits you earn from serving. And I ended up in the insurance industry and didn't know anything about it. But at the time I was in college, I had managed a gun store, had made a lot of money for that owner, was working 7 days a week. He was never showing up, and I was basically running the business, everything from ordering to paying people to, keeping the books. I was doing, really the only thing in there I didn't do was the actual Cerakoting of the guns. I just never been a good painter, didn't have any desire to learn how to do that, but probably could have if I wanted to. And I just kind of got fed up, and I got the opportunity to go to the insurance world, start my own agency, and I thought that would be really cool and super lucrative. They got me hook, line, and sinker with their sales pitch. Moved across the country to do that, uprooted my wife and I, and got out there, and boy, was it a rude awakening. I was knocking doors, selling final expense to seniors. So the poorest 1/3 of Americans in rural Tennessee, rural Georgia, rural Alabama, and rural Florida. So the poorest of the poor. I mean, it was 2020, 2021. I'm driving around to people's houses, taking them to the bank to open bank accounts so that I could sell policies. And it was just a scummy job. I hated it. Migrated from that to selling health insurance from home. That wasn't a bad gig till they turned the lead money off for about 10 days. Couldn't make any money. I don't know if you know anything about cold calling and selling, but you start to build a pipeline, follow-ups, and you really start to get business in. But if they turn your leads off for 10 days, you basically start that cycle all over again.
Yeah.
Got fed up with that, drove around to all the local big box stores, think Allstate, Progressive, Geico, State Farm. Had about 4 job offers, picked an Allstate agency based on some promises that they made, and did that for almost a year. Was really good at it, but quickly found out I'm the only one in the office that's not going to get close to the revenue that I'm bringing in. I'm not getting paid commissions that I think are fair in the property and casualty world, and I'm the only one producing in the office. So I just looked at my wife and said, I'm done. I'm done with the insurance industry. I quit. I'm going to move on and find something else. It's your turn to pick where we want to live. She said Florida. I was like, sweet, that's cool.
Nice.
My dad's down here. My sister's down here. So let's be close to family. I spent my whole adult life away from family with the military. And went back to flight school to get CFI done. I was just going to bite the bullet, pay the dues, get the decent career, that whole shebang. When I had originally finished flight school in Washington, I had some crackheads break into my house and steal a bunch of shit. One of the things they stole was my flight bag that had my logbook in it. Long story short, I went back to CFI. I was a week away from the check ride in stage 2, doing really well. I was always decent at flying. The book work for being an instructor is a lot harder and really intense, but I was bound to finish it. Had to write the FAA a handwritten letter requesting my commercial check ride numbers, because those numbers have to be to the decimal point accurate when you go to take a check ride for your next check ride. And they responded, it'll be 6 to 9 months before we can get that to you.
Oh my God.
And here's insult to injury. My private pilot check ride was on the website available for download. It was 260 kilobytes of data, and they couldn't put my commercial check ride that was 2 years after my private pilot check ride on the website. You would think the most recent one would have been on there. So I picked up a job in the sod farms here in Central Florida, just mowing grass. And I know that sounds like a terrible job, but it has to be one of the best jobs I've ever had in my entire life. I would work from 7 to 5. And if you work 6 days a week, you can make $1,000 a week after tax.
That ain't bad.
To be left alone, I just get on a mower. I put my headphones in, listen to audiobooks and podcasts. So again, I'm still in this pretty dark, miserable place. Just nothing's really resonating with me. So while I was out in the sod farms, I did that from July to December. So about 6 months, 5 months there. I discovered the Sean Ryan show, and I don't know if you're familiar with that show.
I sure am. It's a great show.
He's I take a lot of inspiration from him. I discovered him really early on. I think it was at like 9 or so episodes. So in the sod farms, I got caught up with all of that, and he started talking to some of his Navy SEAL buddies, or some of those secret squirrel special operators out there that went and did the ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT experiences. And I really latched onto that. But what I really latched onto was when Sean went and did his trip down there with Trevor Millar as his facilitator, and I forget who he went and did it through, but I couldn't do it through that organization because I wasn't Special Operations Forces in my career. But when he sat down and talked to his wife, and all of the changes she had said she had noticed in him just in the short time that he had been back, I was sold. I immediately started pursuing. And I applied to just about everyone that's out there. And I, to this day, can't remember if I actually applied to Heroic Hearts or if they just found my information or somebody volunteered me. But they were the ones that gave me the call. And that whole experience, I was still pretty agnostic about it. I was like, this woo-woo bullshit, it can't work. You know what I mean? Just like really not open-minded about it. So, I think I was on the waiting list for 3 or 4 months. I did all the integration before and after, and about about 2 days before the trip, I started to get really, really anxious and kind of scared, if I'm being honest, about the trip, because I, in my life, had never experimented with any drug that wasn't cannabis. So that was really my experience with drugs.
You were really stepping outside the box.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But desperate, right? In desperation. So I get to Peru, and when I landed in Tarapoto, Peru, I made one promise to myself. I said, I'm going to participate in everything, and I'm going to keep an open mind this entire week that I'm here. And it's the best decision I could have ever made for my life, because everything changed for me. I look at pictures from the day I got there, and 3-4 days later, the after pictures, I don't recognize the guy in the before pictures at all.
Wow.
Like, at all. And so when I came back from that is really when I got focused and started becoming more creative and really got out of my own way and started latching on to those integration techniques, the mindfulness, the meditation, the breath work, the yoga, all of that stuff, the grounding techniques, to find myself and figure out what I was going to do. And then really started focusing hard on building a personal brand in November of last year, and that's when the Strategic Veteran was started.
That's amazing, dude. It's funny because you set an intention. Even though you were super nervous, you set that intention that you were going to keep an open mind and that you were going to let this do what it does to you.
And I think that's the key, man.
It's crucial, yeah.
Like intentions versus expectations, and I understand the difference now. And man, intentions are powerful.
Yeah, I mean they really are, and it's incredibly exciting to see all the new research that's coming out with all sorts of psychedelic drugs, psychotropics to kind of treat a whole host of things. You strictly want to keep it holistic. Like, had you done any treatment of pills at any point?
No,
for depression, man, or anything?
I just
strictly
knew,
holistic.
So I one of my mentors, one of the guys I looked up to when I PCS'd up to Fort Lewis, Washington, his name's Alan Russell. Petey is what I call him. He's one of my best friends to this day. I was just out in Utah visiting him last month, actually. He went on all the pills after he broke his neck in Afghanistan, and that sent him down the rabbit hole of all the drugs that come with that. And he tried to get help several times. In fact, I drove him from Fort Lewis to Portland to check him into rehab. 24 hours later, he checked himself out after he promised me he wouldn't. He was obviously seeking drugs, and he had been on those pills. He had become a zombie, and he still tried to kill himself. I found him hanging from a balcony and then, spent time with him in the hospital before he actually got help. And now we have a really awesome pact. Neither one of us can kill ourselves before we hit the age of 75. We figured that's
reasonable.
That's a pretty reasonable age, you know what I mean? But I watched too many guys go on those pills, and the American Lake VA, this is a knock on them. I'm not afraid to put myself out there. When I got out, I did the thing, go sign up for VA healthcare. I'll tell you, I've been out 9 years, and I'm still waiting on a sleep appointment at that VA. You know what I mean? Like, I was just very, very turned off to any help that the VA was going to give me. They were just going to throw pills. And you've seen the videos. You've seen the videos where veterans will stand in their kitchen counters and throw their pills in a trash can, and it's just 20 fucking bottles of pills. And it's like, what is this doing to you? So I'd never pursued any of that. I was really turned off to therapy. I had talked to a couple of therapists through the med board process, and my experience with that is they're not relatable. They can't relate to any of the things that I think that I'm going on, that I think are ailing me, which I guess hindsight's 20/20, because I know that all of the things that I thought were wrong with me and ailing me, they had nothing to do with any of that. It actually had to go further back to like childhood trauma and shit like that. So, it was just, I think that the Sean Ryan thing and psychedelics was just like, why not? I have nothing to lose. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like, I've not heard of anybody dying from taking this shit, you know, as long as it's done in, you know, a professional,
Careful, controlled manner.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and for me, I'm very on that side of the fence, right? Like, I'll probably never do ayahuasca outside of a ceremonial setting. I'll never do it in the United States ever.
Yeah.
I don't believe in
what's
that.
the point?
You know, and so, you know, I think for me, you know, that's just kind of where I landed. I had enough wherewithal to know that the pills aren't going to help me, right? Just case studies, living case studies of my buddies. You know, I'm not dumb. I can still observe the physical world and see
Sure.
what's going on with this. So I just knew that wasn't a route for me. I'm really terrible at remembering to take pills. So like
It was also out of necessity.
yeah, I was pretty doomed from that, you know?
That's incredible. Yeah, I you know, ayahuasca, anything that's been practiced for thousands of years, there's a reason.
Thousands of
There's
years.
a reason that they do that. There's a reason that it's valuable. There's a reason that cultures all over Mexico, South America, and all over the world use these as rites of passage into adulthood. It's like a required thing that you do it at least once. You know what I mean? That's a practice tradition for a fucking reason.
Well, and man, the world would be such a better place. These are the secrets that I'm talking about that have
Sure,
been kept
yeah.
from us. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, let's get into it. Let's hear 'em, you know?
let's do it, man. What do you want to know?
Well, I'm interested to know, like, it's good we have people like Sean Ryan, because Sean Ryan, to me, is doing two very valuable things. He's bringing people into, giving people a really good look into some of the darkest shit humanity has to offer.
Yep.
And he's also, even just by hosting Guest on Guest, I think he is honestly making it okay to the masses for us to be vulnerable, hearing stories of war, and not reacting like civilians to it.
100%.
And like actually having empathy for the person and the experience that they had, and all the people who were involved in that experience.
And it's healing through conversation.
Exactly.
Like conversation that I think,
Plain and simple.
Largely my generation of warfighter, we weren't allowed to have these conversations, right?
Sure.
We weren't allowed to talk about, you know, the mental toll that some of that shit takes on you, the physical toll that it takes on you, because the minute you did that, either one of two things: you were going to be looked at as weak, and so you were not going to be considered reliable in your unit anymore, or B, you weren't going to be looked at as weak, and they were going to try and get you the help, but you're going to lose your career for
Right.
it, you know. And I'm not saying that it's right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just saying that's how it was, you know, and we didn't know any better. And I think, you know, that's a generational thing, right? You can take that all the way back to the World War II guys.
Yeah, easy.
And I think even more over the Vietnam guys who were spit on when they came home.
Yeah.
You know, like, of course they didn't want to talk about those things, because, you know, if I serve my country, I go to this hellish place, and then I come home and my own citizens want to spit on me and call me a baby killer,
Disrespect me, yeah.
completely. Like, of course I'm going to compartmentalize that. I'm going to let it rip me to shreds and live a terrible life, because I know that people are judging me on the backside if I do want to talk about it. And I think that carried over into my generation as well.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. I don't even necessarily think we've reached like mass appeal with it being okay to talk about. I'm of the opinion we don't have crime problems in America. We have therapy problems in America. We don't have violent criminals in America. We have people that desperately need medical attention. And I think the more I look at so many different layers of society, I think therapy for all ain't such a bad idea. It never hurts to talk, and the plain and simple fact of it is, when we say somebody is normal, that's just what the masses are agreeing on, is this is normal behavior. The fringe behavior, giving somebody a pill or strapping somebody to a table and like forcing them to take some medicine that melts their brain so they're like pacified. I don't know. It just seems so cruel. It's always seemed cruel to me. So
Yeah,
I really want to like hear your thoughts, and of all the treatments that you know that are like holistic approaches to
yeah,
these
man,
issues?
I'm all about the plants, dude. Like I said, ayahuasca in one night changed my entire worldview, my perspective, my thinking and feeling about myself, showed me a lot of things that I needed to deal with and stop running from, purged the evil out of me, right? Like just restored balance in my life. And so, now because I don't have access to ayahuasca on a regular basis, which is probably a really good thing because I do have an addictive personality and I know that I would probably tend to run to it or abuse it or whatever. But it taught me intention. So now I can be intentional in my mindfulness. I can pay attention to my thoughts and my feelings and whether or not they're serving me. It taught me how to breathe, to return back to baseline, to ground myself. Also taught me that cannabis doesn't have to be a bad thing. I don't have to be looked at as a stoner because I use cannabis. I can use it to actually explore myself and work on these things that I need to work on. Through that, after the ayahuasca experience, I got picked up to go to another retreat with Operation Red Wings, and I learned about CBT, and I forget what the type of therapy is where they wave their, I think that is CBT. That was really powerful too. That was really cool to get to sit there with that therapist and experience that, knowing, building off the foundation that the ayahuasca gave me with the mindfulness and exploring my emotions. Like then I could really focus on some of the problems while I was in that therapy session and really get the most out of it. So I'm all for all of the things, man. I've seen people heal just through doing yoga. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Like they change their entire mindset just doing yoga. And so I'm really against big pharma and medicine and all of that stuff, man. I just any other modality, I think medicine should be a last resort. I'm not saying that it doesn't have its place, because I'm sure that there are case-by-case bases where, unfortunately, you as a person are going to have to be on pills forever because you have some kind of biological or physiological chemical imbalance that can't be managed any other way. But until you've exhausted all of these other options, I think that should be a last resort.
Yeah. Yeah, I would completely agree with you. And all you have to do is listen to the fucking disclaimers at the end of pill commercials.
Right. Like, why do I want to take a pill that's going to then lead to rectal bleeding?
Death. Yeah, exactly. This is supposed to solve rectal bleeding.
I think
it might cause more.
I think I'll take the symptoms that I'm experiencing over the side effects of this fucking pill you want to give me.
Yeah, I mean, that same argument could be made about holistic or medicinal uses of any of these drugs, or even why they were vilified in the first place. It was a known thing they could be used, but big pharma, monopolized their ability to be the arbiter of drugs. They're the supplier, And
you can see it, right? So before I did the ayahuasca thing, man, I was 311 pounds. My blood work was that of a diabetic 60-year-old man. My cholesterol through the roof, blah blah blah, you name it, right?
How old were you?
I was 38, 39. Wow. 38. I had just turned 38 because I just turned 39 in May. So at 38, I was 100 pounds overweight. I've lost 100 pounds in a year. My blood work is perfect. I have an app. I don't know how accurate it is, but it says I'm basically running around in the body of a 20 or a 35-year-old man now.
Nice.
So I've unaged myself 4 years. But like a prime example of what you're talking about is, you have high cholesterol. Well, I didn't know anything about cholesterol, right? It's just supposed to be bad. Well, if you start doing some research, you find out cholesterol is actually produced in your liver. Your brain is largely made up of cholesterol. Imagine that. And then if you go to the American Heart Association's website, they will say on there that there is no direct link between high cholesterol and heart disease.
Wow.
Yet they still want to give you a statin or a pill or a shot, right? Which is going to cause more side effects, is going to put you on more pills, and then you start to see this loop that you get in. And if I misquoted that, I'm sorry. I know I went and did my own research at some point and found that little disclaimer on there. There is no direct link to heart disease and high cholesterol. Now there's research papers coming out about cholesterol and the effects that it has on the brain, and that could be a good thing. I've been through all the process to get on. I can't tolerate statins, so oral statins, so they wanted to put me on the shot. In order to do that, you have to go to a heart doctor. So I had to go to the heart doctor and do the ultrasound, and then a couple of different tests, right? And then the heart doctor's like, your heart is perfect. Like, there's no concern here. You know what I mean? I have completely changed my diet, and so my cholesterol's still high. So that's how I know that it's not nearly as big a problem as they want you to think that it is.
Well, for sure. You know, one of the things that always used to piss me off, even as a kid, is like the food pyramid.
Oh, God.
They made that up. They just made that up to sell cereal, dude. Like, it's like known, documented now.
Right.
But like, it's still a thing that people use to as a guiding principle in their life. You
start looking into seed oils. Have you ever looked into seed oils?
Oh my God, for sure.
Do you know the original intention behind seed oils? Industrial machine lubricants.
That makes sense. Cheap. A cheap industrial lubricant.
And now we're eating that. That's a problem.
It's the rage now.
Right.
It's the whole thing. Getting liquids from things that aren't liquid.
Right. Like
nut milks and seed oils.
I've never seen a sunflower seed give me oil.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how many of those you need to get a jar of oil. You know what I mean?
Literally an entire field.
What's another one? Grapeseed oil? Like, first of all, I didn't really know grapes had seeds. What are we doing here?
Well, it's also too, like, you think about it, it's just another way for whatever company is processing that thing, it's another way for them to make money off the waste. They'd otherwise be throwing it out, but instead they'll package it and call it this fancy thing that people will buy for an inflated price. You know, and any self-respecting doctor too, like, this is something that's always bothered me. Any self-respecting doctor that isn't getting a kickback from a pharmaceutical company will tell you, we have a Band-Aid system. It's not a cure system. The medical system in this country, at least, is not about cures. It's about Band-Aids. So you have to keep coming back to refresh the Band-Aids.
I will say I've met several, what do they call them? I don't know. I was in that psychedelic integration coaching course with three or four doctors, actual real medical doctors, who left the entire profession because they woke up.
Wow.
You know, so I do think people are starting to wake up. They're not really wanting to participate in the system as it exists now. I think that's a good start. Yeah,
I would agree. I think just even people, just in the same way that you are, remaining open to other options first. Like, let's try all these other less invasive, less harmful options first, and then if we need it, we get to the point where we go get some radiation injected in us. You know, cancer has always pissed me off, especially
I've got feelings on this one.
Yeah, like, I really kind of want to talk about this for a second, because it's always pissed me off, because I've seen at least 3 documentaries of people who individually figured out a way to cure different types of cancers. 2 of them, I think, were chased out of the United States. All of these places are still working internationally elsewhere, and they haven't been shut down, and they are curing people of cancer. Beyond that, there are people doing, like, some super insane shit with sound, like using sound to disintegrate cancer, like vibrations. It's nuts shit. There are way better options than radiation. But radiation and chemotherapy is still what they're going to push on you. It's what most people are going to get offered. Yeah. And it's I understand it was something that we thought was a good idea like 50 years ago. I completely get that. We had just discovered the atom bomb, and everything was going atomic, and it just made sense. But now you're telling me we don't have a better option than giving somebody effectively low levels of radiation poisoning.
We have a free option. Just starve. I'm serious, man.
No.
I'm
clean yourself out.
I'm a huge participant in intermittent fasting. Usually, I lost all my weight through intermittent fasting. I fasted for over 7,000 hours last year. So
wow,
basically 20 hours a day. Then I would do, for an entire month, I'd do a 48-hour fast every week. But largely now I've kind of plateaued and stabled out, so it's between 16 and 20. It just depends on how I feel, and in tune with my body. I know how to listen to it, but I'm intrigued by it. One of my best friends in the world was staying with me earlier this year. He did a 7-day fast, cured his allergies.
Yeah.
Like he's had allergies his whole life and they're completely gone. And so I constantly looking at different stuff in the fasting world, not like rabbit holing or anything, but I found a documentary on Netflix. 2 Australian friends go to Bali. They're going to do a 40-day fast, 20 days only water, 20 days juice fast at the retreat in Bali. Part of that documentary, they talk to a guy who had stage 4 colon cancer. He goes to the same retreat in Bali, does a juice fast for 20 days. His cancer
I was just going to say
gone.
that, yeah. That one of the guys that I was referring to, his whole thing, a large component of it was a fast. Yeah. It was fast and a juice regimen and some other type of medicinal regimen. But go ahead.
There was in that same documentary, there was another case. A girl who was a teenager living in a third world country ended up getting a tattoo, contracted hepatitis C. She did the same 20-day fast at the same retreat in Bali. Juice, didn't do the water thing, and no record of hepatitis C in her blood whatsoever. Completely gone.
That's crazy.
So why are we hiding these results? Why are we not even looking at the physiology, what's happening in the body that's giving people these results? Because I believe it to be true. I've witnessed a 7-day fast cure my buddy's allergies. He's back in California right now, and he's still. I check in with him regularly. It's like, hey, how's the allergies? He's like,
they back yet? They come back yet?
They're gone. Yeah,
wow, that's amazing.
Completely gone, right? And so, I know that even doing like a 2 or a 3-day fast for me, I can notice significant changes. So, I'm with you, man. There are so many secrets out there that we just refuse to put money into, to research, and I think it's a travesty. It's a disservice to our society, I think.
Well, the thing that bothers me is like if it's all about money, if somebody is suppressing these means because they don't want to disrupt their cash flow, why don't they monetize it? And ultimately they don't want to do that because then it cures people. Right.
Because they can't get them in that loop.
They can't continue making money off of them if it cures them. But, I'm of the same... It's to a lesser extent, I'll spaz about food, but there's less we can do about that. But it's the same kind of situation. Like, if you look at what the average person eats in the UK, just like the ingredients on the food in the UK is very different than the United States. Yeah. And I can't help but think that part of it is in an effort to maximize profits. They weren't necessarily mad if the food didn't make us healthy, because that would just be a direct pipeline to the medical industry in that circle. I don't want to imply, correlation isn't necessarily causation, right, but it sure seems that way. Like even with the food pyramid, they made it up. They made it up and told us it was true for almost 100 fucking years.
Well, it's like the whole push with margarine and butter, right? Like butter is supposed to be extremely bad for you, and margarine is just a petroleum product that you're now ingesting. And it's like butter actually comes from the animal. You just beat it until all the milk fat is out of it, and you have just butter. Like
we've been eating it for thousands of years.
I love butter.
Totally fine. Totally fine.
It's so good, and it's not doing anything bad to me now. So the same thing. I can remember growing up, like eggs were supposed to be bad for you, and now like we I think in my lifetime, just in my 39 years of life, they flip-flopped 15 fucking times on eggs. Right?
I'm never giving up eggs.
Ever.
Just saying that.
Never.
They're always going to be eaten in this household.
My big thing is sugar. Fuck, dude. That's where all my weight came from. I am a sugar addict. Yeah. To my bones. I love baked goods, chocolate chip cookies, cakes. My
right there with you, dude.
Is so good at baking all that shit, and so I mean,
a pipeline directly to your stomach.
Yeah, right to my stomach, man. And I didn't realize like how destructive sugar is. Like when you understand how your body burns fuel and that sugar is like a cheat for your body, it really doesn't have to do any work to get fast, usable energy. That's why you get so fat when you're on sugar. When I cut sugar out of my life, man, is the best thing I could have ever done for myself.
Did you also feel like an improvement in joints? I don't know if that was something that you suffered from, but I've heard a lot of people who have cut out sugar. They've been like, oh, my trick knees feel so much better now.
I don't know, man. That's tough for me to say because I was so hard on my body. I've had 11 surgeries or so since I've gotten out. I've got arthritis everywhere, so I'm in pain constantly, right? So for me, I didn't notice. I think definitely inflammation for sure. Like my ankles wouldn't be as swollen. I wouldn't have as stiff. Like in my fingers and toes, they wouldn't be as stiff. But it's really hard for me to say because I do just live with so much destruction in my body. Sure.
There's no control for you to compare against.
No, I don't have a control. No, that's the fairest way to say it. Yeah.
So, if like you were, let's just say, for instance, you've got somebody who's just gotten out of service, they're experiencing PTSD, depression, all the bullet points. What are going to be like the first things that you recommend to them if they were going to entertain a holistic approach?
I would tell them that they need to sit with themselves and they really need to spend some time alone looking in the mirror to try to figure out, who are you? Like, really ask yourself, who am I? And I think that's a really good start because it's really uncomfortable. It's really hard to really sit with your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions in that moment and be present and really understand who you are. And I think that's where it starts because in order to get anywhere, you need to know what your beliefs and values are. And if you don't know what those are, you're just going to be at the mercy of what society tells you to do.
Yeah, well, you can't trust society to do that at all.
I've got thoughts and feelings on that.
Especially now.
It's rough. It's rough out there.
Well, we talk about even people being aware of these options, and this is something I talk about all the time on the show, but like the true scale of the propaganda that everybody everywhere is under because of how many screens are in front of our faces all day is intense.
Yep.
And I understand the ecosystem is going to want to protect the ecosystem. No one wants to disrupt the cash flow. But I do see glimmers of hope, definitely in the generations below us. It's kind of like they're kind of like this out of the gate. They're just a little more skeptical and a little more willing to do a little bit of research to find an alternative.
Yeah.
And that is inspiring. It's not to say it reduces any of the stress of the other existential threats that we face, but it is kind of inspiring to know that it's gotten, we're about the same age. Like, we kind of grew up with the same social events. It's ramped up considerably in the past 20 years.
Oh, it's
as a kid, it was not like this. I would say probably the tipping point is like 9/11. Then
is that even fair to say, though? Because we're largely the last generation that understands what it's like to not have access to information. Right?
We're it.
Like, we're it, right? So I didn't have a cell phone until I was 17 years old. Right, so I'm a senior in high school, largely a month or two away from graduating, and the only reason I had a cell phone was because it was really cheap and I wanted one, and I can go get one. You know what I mean? I didn't even have anybody to call or text because nobody had phones. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm the guy that would ride his bicycle like 8 miles to my friend's house to knock on his door to find out he's not there, to ride 8 miles home and be like, well, okay, cool,
whatever,
right? Like, so. I don't know if we even really understand, was it like this when we were kids? Because it just wasn't at the forefront of our faces all the time. You know what I mean? Like, we were largely out. I don't know how you grew up, but
no, that is a good point. Yeah, we were outside.
Yeah, right. Like,
we weren't in front of a screen all day.
I'm outside from the time breakfast is over, if there's no school or anything, until the From Dusk Till Dawn light comes on, because I lived in the country in southern Indiana, right? So we didn't have street lights. We had the From Dusk Till Dawn light to light the barn, But I just don't remember. I mean, I grew up poor, so I only had the 4 local channels. One of them was in static, right? So really all I saw on TV was Notre Dame football. Or Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy in the evenings. That was pretty much it. So like, there's nothing being shoved down your throat. Wasn't interested in reading a newspaper. I wasn't interested in watching the nightly news unless it was for the weather, to know if I was going to be wet playing outside the next day.
Exactly.
You know,
to wear a raincoat. Yeah.
So I just wonder if it's just in your face now. You have all these mediums to get at people to deliver your message, right? Like, I'm no different. I play the same game to promote my business,
sure.
Right? So I don't know. I mean, I think you raise an interesting point for sure, but I also, like, is it even a fair comparison because of access to information?
Well, okay, so there's two things I think about this, and I definitely remember. I remember when the internet came out. I remember when the internet was free, like legitimately free. Yeah. And I remember before advertising had moved in to the level that it has now, like with targeted ads that are listening to what I'm saying in my conversations and then advertising shit for me.
Can't wait to see what pops up on my phone after this conversation.
Yeah, right? Seriously. It's always a joke too. Like, it freaks my wife out. She'll be talking about something random and then I'll get an ad for what she was talking about.
Every time.
Like, this is what it is there's pros and cons. One of the pros of being constantly connected is you're constantly connected. The cons of being constantly connected are that you're constantly connected. And I do remember a time before advertising got in where the internet was free, and it was like everything that you did on the internet, it was really like a discovery. Yeah. You really had to go find it. Nothing was really being crammed down your throat. Now I'm lucky if I can open an app and not accidentally buy something. It's just like, because when the internet first came out, all the big companies at first, they were like, I don't want to develop a website. Right. Like, they were like first like really adverse to it. But once the ecosystem moved over there, it just got that the thing is our attention. Facebook is free, Instagram is free, because they're selling your data to advertisers. That's why we get all of the social shit for free. We're what makes them money.
Well, and Instagram, that's an interesting one right now. I don't know how your Instagram feed looks, but I really don't do a lot on Instagram.
A lot of people are feeling that way recently.
But I have, like, unless you're a yoked, shredded, roided out fitness influencer, or you have an OnlyFans, I can't really see a use for Instagram at all. Yeah. And it's ridiculous. I created a new account for the nonprofit work that I'm doing and start scrolling, and the first thing it shows me is half naked women, and I'm like, this is like, I'm here to prevent veteran suicide. Can you at least show me something along those lines instead of 50 DMs and 70 For You feeds of women promoting their their OnlyFans? And I'm like, this sucks, dude. Like, what are we doing here?
Well, it's bots too, between that, of course. That and Twitter. Like,
you get the AI ones now. Have you seen those? Those are interesting. Yeah. Like, what are we doing?
We're completely losing it, is what we're doing.
Yeah, we are.
I again, I also too, I'll often think about, like, is the sharp uptick in mental health awareness and the need for mental health awareness, is that being heightened, or is it being caused by people using social media? And
I think both.
Yeah, I would honestly, when I would be objectively analyzing this, I would assume it'd be a little combination of both. But I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
I think both, man. I think having unprecedented access to platforms where you can just go and speak whatever you want and think that there's no consequences, obviously is going to contribute, right? You think that you can go out and say this thing, and then somebody's going to come back and respond to it, and you weren't prepared, or you don't socially know how to handle that response, which sends something through your brain that make you think you're broken or whatever. I don't know, man. This is a tough one, because the people say a lot of things online that they would never say to somebody in real life.
Yeah.
They're keyboard tough guys. Yeah. And, I do think that that's a problem, and I think that could be a large contributor, because, if you're not willing to say that to someone's face in person, why are you willing to type that? And then you're probably not equipped to handle the response that's going to come from that either. You know what I mean? Like, if you say something off kilter to me and I punch you in the mouth, like we used to when we were kids, you're going to learn a lesson there. Like, maybe I should probably hold my tongue, or that wasn't appropriate. Yeah. And you're going to build some kind of resiliency from getting punched in the mouth, right? Like, it's just true. It's just, like, okay, that hurt. Probably shouldn't say that again. But because you can get away with it online, eventually there comes a point where you do it to the wrong person, and then their entire following attacks you, belittles you, doxes you, whatever happens, and then something in your mind breaks because you're not properly equipped to handle that. You don't have the resiliency to handle it, and now we have a mental health problem. I think that could be it. I think I have feelings on the OnlyFans thing. I think that is absolutely destroying our society. I don't think that anything good can come from that. And I think that's probably causing a ton of mental health problems, not only for women, but for men as well, particularly for men.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think the answer is still both, man. I don't have a reasonable answer for it. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on it, but I do think people not getting punched in the mouth anymore is a big reason for all of it.
I would agree. That did set a standard. I remember that, again, working for thousands of years, humans were doing that. I'm of the same mind. I don't know, man. Like, we are qualified to speak on it because we're literally the last group of we're the last humans who are going to know that, at least in America. You know what I mean? We're the last ones that understood what it was like before this. And it's not to say that world was a cheery, happy place. There was plenty of darkness in that world too, and there were people with bad attitudes and any type of ism that you hate, they were there then too.
Of course.
But now, because we have the internet, instead of going to some strange niche place to find those types of people, they're just on the internet for everyone.
Yeah.
And you can stumble across them however, you're just scrolling through your social media. So
yeah, it's a problem. I like Joe Rogan's philosophy on this. I'm sure you've probably heard him say it. He's like, the internet's so new, we're just using it without an owner's manual. And in 30 years, we're going to figure out, like, oh, we probably should have set some ground rules for this.
From the beginning.
I think that's like the easiest way to answer it. But sitting here thinking about it some more, it's like, yeah, of course, social media is a problem because now you have way more targeted like makeup ads for women, which is changing the beauty standard or what they think. And half the time, I don't know how you feel, but like, I don't like makeup on women.
I'm the same. My wife is minimal on makeup, so
yeah, my wife never ever. I couldn't tell you the last time she even bought maybe some. I don't even know what they're called. You know what I mean? Stuff for her eyelashes.
Eyeliner, but, sure.
But I think that like largely, I know I don't care about the vanity shit like that. What I care about is, are you a good person? Who are you on the inside, right? Like, to me, a woman is at her most beautiful when she's wearing my t-shirt and some baggy shorts with a messy bun. You know what I mean? Like, So, and I think same thing for guys, right? Like, all these roided out guys who are getting paid millions of dollars through sponsors to put out content on Instagram, to be in your face and tell you you're a weak little bitch because you can't get your ass out of bed and go to the gym and lift for 4 hours a day because you have to work, so you can't look like me. Like, obviously that's doing something to everyone.
Well, and what's hilarious to me is that like most of those are fucking scams.
Oh, of course.
Like it's just like Liver King is a prime example, but just like go down the list of people who get propped up for a minute, and it's like, dude, they're just lying to you.
Right.
They're preying on your insecurity. That's what they're doing.
And I think like one of my favorite guys right now is like Sam Sulek because he's young.
Oh yeah, dude, he's awesome. His content is great.
He's very honest. Like I'm juiced to the fucking gills. Like, that's how I got so big, right? Like, and I don't give a shit what you think about it. Like, this is how I'm choosing to live my life. And a lot of people have called him out. Like, he's unhealthy. He's probably going to die in his 40s. It's like, well, that's how he chooses to live his life. But he's also not pulling the wool over anybody's eyes.
At least he's telling the truth.
He's being authentic about it. And it's the same with my journey, right? Like, I got tested. I had low testosterone. I'm on TRT. I have been for almost a year. Is that why I lost all the weight? Maybe it's a factor, but I did lose 60 pounds on my own before I went on it. You know what I mean? And I don't lie about it. If you ask me, I'm going to tell you, yeah, I'm on fucking TRT, and it's the greatest thing I've ever done in my entire life. I feel like I'm 20.
Yeah, it's one of those things to me where it's like we're lacking authenticity. I wouldn't mind. Like, that's why I love Sam Sulek. He's not trying to bullshit anybody. He's like, this is not. These aren't natural gains. This is how I'm doing this. It's not something I'm going to do. But it's like I 100% appreciate the honesty. I've always said this about politicians too. I generally distrust politicians, but if there was a politician out there who would be actually willing to tell me the seedy shit that they're into, I might respect them more. I might be like, I don't really like this guy, but I gotta respect the fact that
at least you didn't lie to me about fucking me over.
He's telling me the truth. He's telling me how fucked this situation is. I gotta appreciate the honesty. But like we're just so concerned with agreeing with the nice vision of something and not peering behind the curtains at all. But I don't know. The social media aspect of it is hilarious because all of them ultimately get found out at some point.
Yeah, like Liver King, and then he backpedals, and then he doubles down on it and tries to say, no, I'm not doing it. It's like, dude, we've got your emails.
We already established this, dude.
and somehow he still has people that follow him, and good for him. Like, I have no issue. I'm for PEDs. I'm for
100%.
I want to push the human body, like, particularly in professional sports. I think it's fucking awesome, dude. Let's push this to the max. Let's see what the human body's capable of. Why not? If it's their decision ultimately, right? Like, I'm sure that they know the risks. You can't tell me that, Flex Wheeler and Phil Heath and Ronnie Coleman and Rich Piana and, all these greats, Mr. Olympias, they didn't know the risks. Like, look at Ronnie Coleman now. He's got to walk around with canes. And that's the price you're going to have to pay. If you're okay with that and you still want to stick a needle in you, then by all means, do it.
Yeah, it's your fucking choice.
And I love what you said. My philosophy is, the new digital currency is authenticity. I think that's the reason I've been able to accomplish what I've accomplished in such a short amount of time, is because I'm just who I am. I'm the same on your show as you'll see on my show, as you'll see in any of my content, as you'll see, in any meeting that I conduct. I'm the same person. I don't change. I tell it like it is. I am vulnerable. Like, look at my LinkedIn post today. For the first time in 39 years of life, I looked in the mirror and I was actually proud of myself. And I called myself out on it publicly to show people as an example of how you can get better at life.
Yeah, it's never too late to start. And any great undertaking, it just starts with a step.
Yep.
You take that step, and you just keep taking steps, and it might not even lead you where you thought you were going to go, but
it'll inform where you're going to go next.
100%, and you're going to be in a better place than wherever you were before you started. So I kind of want to double back here though. So you do the ayahuasca stuff, and then you start Strategic Veteran. Was that like this is how I'm going to do this? Vision stuff, or after the fact?
No, man. So I'm still largely trying to unpack that whole experience. So I'll give you kind of the Cliff Notes version. Ayahuasca restored the balance, as I understand it, between light and dark within me. I was consumed by darkness, and this kind of makes a lot of sense. Just for example, if you look at the way this screen is framed on here, your podcast is outlined in white, but the letters are black, so it's balanced between light and dark. You can see it everywhere.
That's literally exactly what I was going for. You're the first person to ever notice the duality.
Yeah, and you can see it in your background, your black screen with the whiter lights on a lighter wall, right? Like my green wall here with my dark floors. I mean, it's everywhere. You can't unsee it once you see it. So that was the first thing, was it restored balance in my life between light and dark. And so, big fan of the yin yang now kind of deal. Like, I always was fascinated with that symbol when I was a kid, but I didn't understand it. So now I do. It taught me how to have faith in a higher power, or spirituality, if you will. And it's something I wrestled with my whole life, between being forced to go to a Methodist church as a kid, like not an option, and some creepy Sunday school that I thought was, weird, to, fighting overseas 4 times and really questioning God or whatever you refer to him as, is like, why? Like, how can he exist? How can this work? But really largely injected spirituality into my life. I'm still trying to unpack that and figure out what that means for me, but I just refer to, God or a higher power as the universe right now, and kind of the universe leaves us clues and leads us in the direction we're supposed to go. And then the third biggest thing that it did for me was taught me how to love and respect myself, but also that I was capable of so much more than A, anyone, or B, myself had ever given me in my entire life.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of a slow journey when I got back. The first week was really, they kind of tell you after they kind of close you up, you're supposed to wear a hat to keep the sun off your head, right? Like, it's very ceremonial. And so the first week I was back was just really not a lot of things, just reflecting, still practicing some of the things that I had learned. And then started kind of the weight loss journey, but really by accident. It just was like, I just felt compelled to get out and
you're ready for it.
Start walking. I always knew, I for a long time in that dark place, that transition hole I was in, I always knew I wanted to create my own thing. So even before that experience, I had dabbled with drop shipping. I had dabbled with faceless YouTube and TikTok. I had dabbled with, Amazon FBA, blogging, anything to make money online. I'd spent several $1,000s on what I call gurus bullshit courses, which is what I'm trying to do, is put those people out of business, where they sell you a course telling you that you can make $10,000 a month by next month if you do everything that I say and buy my course. You buy their course for like $1,000, and then you get in there to find out, oh, well, I'll tell you the real secret if you just buy
this
my
other
upsell.
course. Yeah,
buy my upsell,
exactly.
And then before you know it, you're $15,000 in a hole. I never spent that much, so please don't think that. But that's the aim of their funnel.
You got out on top, baby.
I did, yeah. I did spend a few $1,000s on some pretty whack courses out there. One of them really wasn't bad. I think it was feasible that you could have made money, but it was a grimy way to do it through ClickBank affiliate marketing, and that's scummy, and I've already participated in a scummy industry with the insurance, so
why
I was
go back into one?
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. So really what happened is, I told you about my buddy who came and stayed with me for a few months earlier this year. He came November 5th, and his challenge to me was get on LinkedIn, post something every single day, and find 5 people whose content resonates with you and engage with them. So I did. I just created that habit, and I hated it, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was throwing shit at a wall. I think the first thing I posted about was personal branding. I think then I moved into SEO, and then I'd try a couple of other things. And really what happened was, people would start reaching out to me, and like, I would have a post that would hit or resonate with some people, and they would message me and like, hey, I think you're really cool. Like, you want to jump on a call and get to know each other better? And I was like, yeah, that's cool. Let's do that. And quickly, Kobe Wecker found me on LinkedIn, and we did a meeting. It was really cool. He never really tried to sell me anything. He just kind of presented that he had his offer, which was coaching. He was working with a couple of clients. I was like, Kobe, dude, I don't have any money. He's like, well, cool. I have a community. It's $20 a month. There's people in here. It's active. I've got a couple of little courses that'll help you find your why in there. He used the Ikigai. So I did. I joined his community, and just about every single Wednesday since, I've been at the weekly meetings for that community, and I've learned just about everything that I know now from that community and from Colby as a mentor, and everything started to take shape. He suggested really getting into the veteran space because obviously I fit that mold, and trying to find a problem to solve in there. And so I started working on that. I originally thought I was going to be like Colby and be a coach, and then I found out how much time is involved with that and how not really scalable that is. I also knew I didn't really want to create courses, so through interactions and tailoring, my messaging and all of that, someone commented on one of my posts and was like, you should call yourself the strategic veteran and put 2 little salute emojis next to your name. So I did that, and that's where the strategic veteran name came from, and started to lean into that with building that personal brand. So the first thing I posted about, here we are months later, I'm coming back around to it, and building a personal brand with the strategic veteran. Yeah, there you go.
I'm gonna have these links and stuff.
Yeah, dude, I'm so proud of this website.
It looks great, man.
I'm so proud of this. This is one of my, I don't know why I'm so proud of it. I just think it's really cool that I have a website with my face all over it. but yeah, man. So after I started tailoring the messaging, I got an opportunity I commented on a man named Thomas McKenzie, who is, I forget his title, but he's really high up with the Allegiant Vets Skill Bridge program. He does a lot of his posts in article format. I had read his article, left a really nice comment on it because I really believed in what he was talking about. He commented back and said, "You are exactly the people I need to come and talk to my SkillBridge programs. Like, would you be interested in doing this? DM me." So I DM'd him, got the invite a couple of weeks later to present on a random Tuesday to this SkillBridge program. And I didn't have any idea what I was going to present about. I wanted to just call attention to the fact that you don't have to fit into what the military tells you do, right? You don't have to just use your GI Bill, write a resume, find a corporate job, hopefully it's not miserable, and then work for the next 40 years or whatever and retire. I knew entrepreneurship was a way, but I also had that imposter syndrome, right? I'd never built anything. I hadn't made any significant money online or anything like that. I just knew that we have high leverage skills that translate well into the business world. So I did. I went and presented to this Allegiant Vets SkillBridge program, went into the Zoom call. There was 1,200 people in there.
Jesus.
And there's 3 presenters at a time. So they set us into breakout rooms and they tell all the participants, go to whatever breakout room interests you most. Most of the people presenting are just recruiters from corporations trying to get veterans into their companies. Largely, that's what they are. So I go to my breakout room. I had a stupid little PowerPoint, ready to go. I think I left it on the first slide the whole time. I ended up with 400 people in my room, which I thought a third of the people from the whole Zoom meeting. I was like, that's really freaking cool.
Yeah, that's
I'm
crazy.
really nervous. I started the presentation by telling them who I was, where I come from, and what I'm doing. From that, I gained like 300 followers. I had several DMs, several booked meetings, people just wanting to talk to me and know more. And the overarching theme from that presentation was, nobody has ever been as authentic in a presentation as you were, because I just abandoned the PowerPoint. I said, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, what are your questions? Like, give them the floor to ask questions. And man, I had some good ones come my way. And then through that, all those booked meetings, they told me I was one of the most authentic presenters they'd ever had, that I opened a door for them that they didn't even know existed in entrepreneurship. And I was like, boom, that's it. I know that I have something here. So a few short weeks after that, Colby had challenged his community members. He had met with one of his students or clients in Chicago in person to just do some networking and work on their thing. And he's like, he had this post or something about how networking online versus networking in person is way different, and it's way more meaningful if you can do it in person. So he challenged everybody in the community to reach out to 3 or 4 creators on LinkedIn in your local area. So I did that, and one guy I had been following for a long time. I loved his content. I was very curious because he's the newsletter creator, and I was interested in newsletters. And I think it's like the easiest business you can start right now that'll give you the most return on your money. So I would encourage everybody to look into newsletters. But I reached out to him, DM'd him, said, hey, I'd love to meet you in person. We can meet at Disney or whatever. It's halfway for both of us. And he did. On a random Sunday, I walked around Disney Springs with this guy, and the first thing he said to me was like, you are not the guy that's going to get his message across via keyboard. Have you thought about a podcast? So I did it, man. I leaned all the way into that. That was like the last week of April. That next 4 or 5 days, I made Facebook posts. I got guests. I reached out to some of my cohort from the Peru trip, asked them if they would be guests because they were business owners, and I did my first 2 episodes, released on May 1st, and it's been a whirlwind since, man.
Dude, even just you talking about your experience post the ayahuasca trip, you're like, it was off to a slow start. It really wasn't. It's maybe you had like a couple down days, but it kind of ramps up super fast. It's like as soon as you picked a path to pursue, the universe kind of just opened unto you.
Well, it's like I told you earlier, right? Like, I knew when I left the Army, what I wanted to do was still be that leader of soldiers, right?
Yeah.
So it's come full circle now because
absolutely, yeah.
Whether I look at myself as a leader or not, I just look at myself as somebody who's trying to help the next guy. I'm trying to help who I was avoid the things that I went through, and
leave it better than how you found it.
And so if you want to look to me as a leader for that, then that's great, but to me, it's just serving others. You know what I mean? And I guess maybe that is what leadership is, right? Like, not what I think of leadership, right? Like, my experience with leadership is taking men to combat and bringing them all home kind of thing, right? Like, I guess I'm kind of doing that in a way now, but I don't really want credit for any of that. I just want to be known for being a decent human and paying it forward. You know, that's really all I care about. I want people to live better lives by avoiding the things that nobody helped me avoid.
Well, I mean, there you go is, again, the intent.
Yeah.
That's your intent. Like, the reason the reason the universe conspires to help you achieve your goal is because the intent is pure, you know. Diddy got arrested the other day.
I heard that last night. My wife told me, and I was like, what?
Everything fucking crumbles.
Right.
Any that corruption, it might go unnoticed for a while, but at some point it's gonna crumble. You know, it doesn't crumble. Honest intentions. Honest intentions rule every time, and you're right, it isn't about glory.
Well, and I'll even tell you this, man. I didn't start making any money until last month. August 1st is the first time I made any money from any of the stuff that I'm doing. And it's not about, I mean, money's the tool. Yes, I wish I was making a lot more money so that I could serve a lot more people, reach a lot more people, and do more for a lot more people. But that's not the reality of where we're at. And I struggled for a long time. Like, what is my offer? What's it going to be? How am I going to make money? Because that's what a business is. And I really struggled with wanting to charge veterans to help them get better. But then quickly realize, like, we're all humans, and unless you've got skin in the game, you're probably not going to invest in yourself. You know what I mean? So it's mitigation for my time, and I don't think what I charge to be a member of my community is really that big of an ask. I feel like people blow a lot more money on that, on stupid shit like energy drinks and Starbucks.
100%. And you know, again, like, when you think about paying, if you had the choice to pay a resource, would you choose to pay a government resource, or would you choose to pay a resource like yours?
Oh,
and
mine.
Hands down, it would be yours every time. I want the least amount of dealing with government assistance as possible in any capacity. And it's, again, like, your insight, not only your perspective on your own experiences, but your insight into helping others is I don't know, like, that's, you want to leave a mark, you want to leave like a real good mark on the world, you want to leave the world better than how you found it. Just treat the people that you come into contact with respect.
Well, and I honestly just approach
and a little bit of dignity, you know.
I mean, yeah, I just approach it with, like, whatever I put into the universe is going to give back to me tenfold, right?
Yeah.
So if I just continue to give, and I do this all the time. I did this just yesterday. It was so funny. It's really, really weird when you get a phone call like this, but I recorded an episode of my podcast. I missed a phone call because it ran over from an appointment that I had set, right, or whatever. She had called 3 times. I called her back immediately as soon as I got off the podcast, and she's like, I tried calling him. I was like, I'm so sorry, that's me. I went over. I was recording an episode of my show. She said, no, it's okay. She's like, hey, I'll make this short. I know you're busy. She's like, I've got a podcast. I'm trying to get out of my own way. I don't usually reach out to bigger creators. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not a big creator. I don't think of myself like that, right? Like, I started LinkedIn with 92 followers in November. I think I'm over 4,300 today. To me, that's not that impressive. I mean, like, yes, I'm proud of the networking I've been able to do and like the accomplishment, but I don't think that that's like a large following by any means. I wouldn't consider myself a large creator. It's really humbling when somebody reaches out to you like that and wants you to be a guest on their podcast because of your messaging, and they refer to you as a bigger creator. Like, you're intimidating to them. I don't want to be that. I want to be the approachable, authentic guy who is willing to do everything for everybody. And that's what I told her. And she was like, you are so easy to talk to. She's like, usually I do these and I need to get like questions so I can gather my thoughts to do the podcast. She's like, with you, I don't feel like I need to do that at all. Your energy is just so good. And I'm like, yeah, it's your show, your rules. Like, I'll do whatever you want. And she's like, well, based on our conversation, I want to send you an email with a bunch of, different topics that we could possibly talk about. And I was like, how about you don't? How about you just surprise me?
How about we just talk?
Yeah, how about we just talk? And she was like, are you serious? She's like, that's really cool. And I'm like, well, yeah, like, that's that's the whole fun of doing a podcast, right? Like I've toyed with an idea. Like I want to do one that's just like a random podcast where random people book on my calendar, and I call it Talking with Strangers.
That is a fucking great show idea.
You know what I mean? Like
that's a great show.
I really
idea.
think that would be just like have some kind of, I don't even
like
know,
old school call-in.
It's something,
like, yeah.
right? Like just like open up like this window where I'm just live or something recording for 2 hours, and whoever comes on, I just talk to them. Like, and I can't say that this is an original idea, because I did have a meeting several months ago with a guy that was something similar. He just records all of his meetings, whether he's met people or not. And if they're good conversations or you know, buzzworthy content, he'll put it out. And if not, then, you know, whatever. But I really believe in the power of conversation, man. And I think that conversation is what's going to change the world, but just doing that to help others, you know what I mean? And that's really all I want to do. I just want to help people get to where they're going, because what fills my cup up is knowing that I had a hand in making your life just a little bit better.
Yeah. You know, I love that. And, you know, I'm going to say this after we just talk shit on social media, but like, social media is supposed to be social. That's why it's called social media. For the longest time, I hated Interact. I did it because I felt, you know, obligated, societally obligated, but I hated it. And it wasn't until I started dating my wife, because she's like a master with social media stuff. And,
good, I could use her help.
No, dude, she really is. Like, she's, again, like, just built her following for a very long time and has cultivated it, and uses her social followings like, she hasn't, dude, she like uses the social media for jobs.
Yeah.
Like she works in the fashion industry, and most of the jobs that she's gotten is because she's friends with somebody on social media who works there. She's engaged with their content. They've opened a dialogue. And I was watching her I watched her do it for like 4 years. I was like, how the fuck are you doing this? And she's like, social media is social. Yeah. You have to use it. And you know, to your point, 4,300, it might not be a lot to you, but that's a lot. Those are good numbers. and to most people, most people are never going to get anywhere close to that. And you know, ever since I kind of readapted my brain to looking at social media as social, I find that most people, even much larger creators, are actually very approachable, and they oftentimes prefer authentic engagement because there's so much inauthentic engagement on the internet.
Well, I love your wife's philosophy, because networking is the key, right? She used it as the tool, the way it's supposed to be used. Absolutely. To network with people, not to just put up a post that goes viral, get a bunch of following, and then you don't know what the fuck to do with it, right? Like, my 4,300 people are very targeted, organic people. There are several that aren't veterans that follow me. In fact, I got a message right before we came on here, like, hey, brother, really inspired by what you're doing. I was never a veteran, but I want you to know that your content really resonates with me. I was like, dude, yes, I talk to veterans because that's the niche, right? Like, that's who I am. That's the community I'm trying to appeal to and genuinely trying to help. But like, the stuff I put out applies to everybody. It doesn't just apply to veterans. It's not veteran
This can
specific.
help you too, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And he just responded with the little clapping emoji, like, you know, that's a really good feeling, and that's what I use it for. I'm not trying to go. I've never had a post go viral. I think my most liked post on LinkedIn has got maybe 1,200 likes, right? Like, that's not a lot. Not a lot at all. And that's because it was reshared so many times or whatever. And they're usually just kind of like a retirement post that I take lessons from because I retired so many years ago or whatever. I've never had one go viral. I just genuinely care about helping people. I've got several people who reach out to me like, hey, your podcast is awesome. I want to start a podcast. I just give them all my knowledge. Like, I don't... What am I going to charge you for? Yeah. It's not a secret. You know what I mean? Like, you can find the information in 5 minutes.
Yeah, you know, I really, there's, again, the gift and the curse. We're constantly connected, social media, it's super cool, but how it's been used recently, or I guess most of the time, it's kind of completely degraded our ability to have even reasonable conversations with people we agree with, much less people we disagree with. Yeah. And I really am, you know, the reason that I love listening to podcasts is because I might see a person on a TV show for 5 minutes, but I'm going to hear a way better story if that person goes on a podcast. I'd rather listen to the podcast because they're going to talk for 3 hours instead of just saying little things that got edited in there.
Well, I think there's no agenda behind a podcast, right? Like
in most cases, yeah. Some there are, I'm sure.
For sure.
But in most cases.
Like our situation today, you and I have never met. Ever. Like we found it. I think you reached out to me on Podmatch, which is rare because I usually do most of the reaching out, right? Because I understand how to play the game to grow. You know what I mean? But like I came into this, I think I sent you an email like I'm super excited to do this conversation, right? Like and I just come into it with an open mind. There's something to be learned from every conversation that I have, whether the energy is good, whether the vibes are good or not. Everyone has something to offer me, and I think genuinely just going in with an open mind and willing to have conversation. There's no agenda behind that. The agenda is to have the conversation. Who is James? I'm going to butcher your last name. Oliva. You know, who is James Oliva? Well, let me see what I can find out, and the time that I get to be on his podcast, right? Like, and dude, by the way, this has been great. I'm loving this conversation. I don't know if you have anywhere to go, but I'm good to go. I do not, man. Okay, I don't have anything till 1:00 my time, so you've got me for another like hour and a half if you want it.
Let's probably roll. Let's at least roll for like another half hour. We'll see at the 2 hour mark. But
yeah, man. No, I love doing long form stuff like this, and that's why, because it's just genuinely a conversation with no agenda. We're not trying to get anywhere. I mean, I think part of your agenda was to like bring me on, get a story, promote me a little bit. That's great,
for sure.
Right? Like
spread what you're doing.
The whole point of a podcast. But beyond that, there's no propaganda. There's no I'm trying to get you to believe like I believe, right? Like you're just showcasing my story because maybe it'll help other people. You're not trying to change it. You're not trying to paint me in some kind of light that I'm not. Like, I think that's why podcasts resonate, because they're not controlled by some corporation somewhere with a bunch of money that is paying you to do their bidding. And that's how I see it. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry.
Well, it's not even a matter of opinion anymore. That is the fact. A lot of even the really big podcasts, they have sponsors, and the sponsors give them the money to do the things that they do. And if they make the sponsors unhappy, the sponsors pull their money. It's always been like that. It's just, this really podcasts are like the last, for now anyways, the last vestige of completely untainted, like the radio's completely bought out. TV stations completely bought out. Movie studios, it's all owned by like the same small number of companies. And this is, one area of the internet. I don't know. To me, I've always loved long form. Even when I listen to music, I mostly do music. And when I create music, I create records. I don't create songs. When I want to listen to music, I listen to a record. I don't want to listen to a song. When I want to learn something about somebody, I want to hear them talk about shit for a long period of time, uninterrupted, and like get to the point where they feel so comfortable in the conversation that the real shit starts coming out. I like real shit, and sometimes real shit is uncomfortable. And what the mass arms of media, what they like to do is present an image that again just appeals to the most people, and they stick away from the harsh realities. But I've always loved the harsh realities. That's what makes me feel human. And, it's through those experiences that I've learned that in most cases I probably have more in common with most people than I have uncommon.
Yeah, I think that's true for most people in general. I think that if they were willing to stop the hive mind think for themselves a little bit, they would find that largely everybody has something that you agree with, and the things that you don't agree with, largely you can come to some kind of conclusion where you meet in the middle.
It's really not that hard.
It's not. It's really, like I get to engage. I don't talk politics ever.
I'm the same.
It's just not, first of all, I've got a lot of thoughts and opinions on why I don't, but I can have those conversations, and there are points where I get heated, but like when I do have those conversations, we largely come to this understanding. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I understand your point of view, and you understand my point of view, and we disagree on that, and that's okay. That's completely okay.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be hostile, and I don't know, man.
You're touching on a great point. It can be okay. We can disagree. In fact, like when we think about, at least in this country, what it means to be an American, what the Constitution means, the whole thing is like, it's okay to disagree. Yeah. We're agreeing that we're going to disagree, and that's okay. I was probably too young to really recognize it in society, but it sure felt like before internet became the thing that you could have dialogue with people that you disagree. In fact, it was expected. If you saw those people, you would at least be cordial. You might not like go over to their house for dinner, but that's fine. You don't have to go over to their house for dinner. That's okay. It's okay. We don't have to be friends with everybody. In fact, have you ever read that book? I don't know if they made you read this in school. The Giver.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah, I've actually read that book a couple of times on my own.
It's a great book. I love that book. That one and Lord of the Flies for me in middle school and high school were like, oh, this
Lord
is
of the Flies was
very
good.
accurate.
Grapes of Wrath was good.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right.
For sure. I don't think they make people read Lord of the Flies or The Giver anymore, but those were
so those were all
fundamental.
Required reading for me growing up. So Lord of the Flies, The Giver, Grapes of Wrath, a lot of The Diary of Anne Frank was one of them.
Yep,
To Kill a Mockingbird was another. Fahrenheit 451 was another.
For sure.
Orwell, 1984, that was required reading when I was in school. That's 7 books I just listed right now that I bet you 90% of the population hasn't ever read or never even heard of them.
Yeah, you try and talk to like I have tried to speak with children, be like, "Oh, have you read The Giver yet?" And they're like, "The fuck is that?" What Animal Farm? They're not watching like they're not seeing those things at all.
It's rough, man. It's rough out there.
Well, but I guess that would be a good question too. Like those, in my opinion, those are fucking required. Those are like studies of different aspects of the darkness of humanity that are like kind of required. Yeah. Are there any other books that have been essential to you on your path to mental wellness?
Oh, the one that comes to mind is a more recent book, but Atomic Habits.
Sure, yeah, we've talked about that a bunch.
For me, mainly because he breaks it down into such stupid little simple, habit. The way you form a habit and neurologically how those neural pathways are connected, like. I love what he talks about. Like, I don't know if you can see the guitar behind me, but I've been trying to learn guitar forever. I'm an impatient person. I have an ear for music, so it makes it even harder for me because when I make a mistake, it's very obvious to me. Oh, yeah, it's painful. And so I'm trying to build into my schedule how I can get guitar in. But, like, if you read that book, it starts with, like, something as simple as a minute of practice at the same time every day. And then that quickly turns into 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes.
2 hours.
An hour. Right. And so I really love that book. What's another one? I can't think of any. I read so much. Right now I'm reading Kash Patel's book, Government Gangsters. So I'm trying to educate myself because I watched his episode on Sean Ryan and some of the stuff he talked about. I was like, man, this goes deeper than I even thought. Right. I think people just need to read more in general and stop reading the fiction, start reading nonfiction, because there's a lot to be learned out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean Ryan is definitely. There's been a couple things recently, like the guy he got from Afghanistan to come on. I don't know if you watched that pod, dude.
Oh yeah.
And like, it's crazy to think that with some of the episodes that he's done, like. People in the government have things have been put into motion, and it's definitely like the first time most average American citizens are having that put on their radar. Like, holy shit. Yeah.
And it takes someone like him to get it out in front of them. And I think that's the sad part, right? Like this would have never seen the light of day.
Yeah. That's a horrifying point. Yeah.
And I'm not sitting here saying I agree with everything. Like Sean Ryan's had some weird guests on there that I'm just like, I don't know about this one, right? Like the Anunnaki guy or whatever. Like,
Billy Carson. Yeah,
I think that stuff's fascinating, and I think it's a really cool perspective, and I enjoy listening to it sometimes. But I don't know if I'm buying into it. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't. That's okay. I don't have to, because then he goes and he does one with Kash Patel, or he does one with the guy from Afghanistan, or what's the guy he's had him on 3 or 4 times now? The guy that actually goes down and embeds himself in the cartels and then comes back. You know who I'm talking about?
Shit, yeah,
it's
I do.
Eddie something.
Yeah, I can't remember his name though.
Like those are fat. He just had Megyn Kelly on, who's one of like the last great bastions of like honest to God, I believe, true kind of journalists out there, right? Like that was a fascinating episode. And I'm not saying I agree with everything or their views either, but the perspective is great to have because it informs my worldview as well. It gives me another lens to look at the world through.
Well, that's the whole point of removing yourself from ignorance. Ignorance. What is ignorance? Ignorance is just lack of experience with. That's what ignorance is. And ignorance is great because it's free to remove yourself from it, and all you have to do is learn something.
Yep.
If you're ignorant to it, learn about it, and you're no longer ignorant to it. But people don't like upsetting the way that they think. People don't like upsetting the things that they're comfortable with, and most people. This is probably something. I don't know if you were this way before you joined the military, but you probably weren't ever afraid of challenges. Did you look forward to them? Was the military kind of like a challenge? I didn't necessarily look forward to them. They were just kind of like, this is what's in front of you. This is what you've got to do, kind of thing, right? Like, yeah, I'm sure I looked at it with a little bit of fear, like, man, this is probably going to suck. but you did it. But yeah, of course, right? And but that's not to say that there's not a lot of challenges that didn't come up in my life that I ran from and I didn't tackle head on either, that I was afraid of and let those get the best of me. Particularly, anything like as an infantry guy, you're kind of expected to kind of walk that path to the special operations world. Like if you want to be like the best of the best, if you will. Right. And I think hindsight's 2020. I know a lot more about myself now that I've done the work on myself than I did back then, but I had it physically. I didn't have it mentally back then, and that's why I would have shied away from the challenge, if you will, just because I didn't have strength of mind that makes sense, to be able to get through it. And I think maybe subconsciously I knew that, so I never like put myself out there to go and fail at shit like that, I guess. So if that's being afraid of a challenge, then yeah, I guess I was. Well, and everybody deals with those battles, right? And I feel like there's a certain point in every person's life where they have to just be like, I'm going to be someone who runs from things, or I'm going to be someone who just deals with it. Whether I like it or not, I'm just going to deal with it. And a lot of people, in my opinion, just don't make it to that point.
No, they stand in their own way, right? And I think to better answer your question, I didn't have a lot of belief in myself, and I also really, throughout my time growing up as a kid, from various people in my life to my mom, coaches, teachers, whatever, I didn't have a lot of belief in me either, and then also that element of disappointed, or you're going to be in trouble if you fail this thing. So I think that's why I probably shied away from a lot more challenges than I accepted. However, when you develop the mentality that I have now, where I believe I kind of welcome failure into my life, because I believe through failure is the only way you can learn lessons that you're meant to learn that help you progress to the place that you're trying to get. And I firmly believe that. And I think because of that philosophy, I'm a lot more equipped to handle failure. It's not the end of the world anymore. It's just a necessary step along the journey. And approaching that with knowing that you're going to learn that next key lesson has been a game changer.
Yeah, no, for sure. Definitely, there was a shift in myself when I accepted the same thing. There were so many instances where I was like, I don't want to deal with that. But then I would end up having to deal with the repercussions of not dealing with it. I don't know. I also learned that it's great to fail, and what it also made me more interested in hearing other people's stories, so I could learn from their failures without having to fail myself. Especially if you find people that are generous with their knowledge or expertise. From a real young age, I just learned, dude, if you can get into somebody older's ear who has more experience, they'll give you so many fucking cheat codes. And all you have to do is just try and fold as many of them in as quickly as possible. And it's not going to guarantee your success, but it's at least going to insulate you from stepping on your own tail a bunch.
Yeah, I love that, man. No, that's so true. I believe that too.
Well, it's one of those things. It's another reason why I do the podcast too, because it's I know so many people with all these different diverse backgrounds, Like, why they may be telling me about their experience, which is not my experience, but I'm going to learn something that's going to benefit my experience.
Right. It's the selfish reason we have podcasts, right? Because
dude, 100%.
Yes, I get to create content that will help veterans transition into entrepreneurship, maybe an avenue they didn't know that was accessible to them. But selfishly, I get to have conversations with real entrepreneurs who are building things, who are behind me, who are further along than I am. And selfishly, I get to learn some pretty awesome lessons that I can, tools that I can put on my shelf for later if I'm not ready to implement, or I can implement immediately that make my business better, or, just learn about, oh man, I can tell, people who seek me for knowledge to avoid this mistake because I didn't make that mistake, so I didn't have to learn that lesson, but this person did, and now they're sharing it with me, so now I have another tool in my arsenal to give to others.
Yeah, this is the great shit.
Yeah.
There's so much. There's definitely been a few guests, at least I've had on, that I don't even know if my audience was into it, but I was like, I've created an excuse for me to actually be able to talk to whoever I want to talk to.
Right. It's cool,
so
isn't it?
Why would I not do that? And I've met so many. You're one of many of the cool folks I've met. I just did a podcast with another podcast, The Swerve. We did a deep dive on DARPA, and it was just crazy to like find another podcast like similar size who's a little bit better researched. And I just cold messaged them. I was like, hey guys, we're kind of similar content, but you guys do way better research. And I thought I knew about DARPA. I was like, this will be easy. I've already researched these things.
Wake up call.
And, dude, they're telling me shit that I'd never even heard of after, been reading about this for so long. So,
well, that's what's fun, right? Like just rediscovering something you thought you knew a lot about, and then somebody comes along and they just completely blow that out of the water for you, and you're like, fuck, I got a lot more to learn.
What was like the big moment for you in this process where you were like, fuck, I've got a lot to learn?
If I'm being honest, the key thing that unlocked a lot of shit for me was when I did my brand workshop with my brand guy. I don't think of myself as creative or right. Like, however, in the graphic design space or understanding logos or even how to, talk to your audience or whatever. But when I sat in that 2.5 hour brand workshop with Asaf, who is now a part of the strategic veteran on my team, he's my brand manager, my community manager. He keeps me in check. He keeps me on track. He ideates for me, and I do the same for him and get to kick him clients. But when I did that with him, it was like off to the races. It was like a wake-up call, like, holy shit, look at all the shit I got wrong. And like, now I have this tool that like keeps me on track with messaging and how, doing an ICP and like sitting down and creating, James and Mike or whoever we named them. And one of them being, the 20 something who only did 4 or 5 years, and the other guy being the 40s, mid 40s and made it to retirement, and understanding the differences between what cars they drive, what their financial situations are. Like, holy shit, it was a big wake-up call, because how you talk to those people matters. That's how you resonate with them. And so that was the big aha moment for me, like, oh shit, I got a lot to learn. Because now in that, it informs your email marketing, it informs all of your landing pages, it informs all of your posts that you're going to put out.
Especially,
it can even inform the videos or the photos that you're going to add to your posts, right? Like, so much stuff came out of that for me. Understanding how to keep consistency across everything with your brand, between colors and type fonts, and like how all of that actually matters when you're trying to build anything. And it was really cool. It was like, I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but that was my big aha moment on this journey.
No, dude, it absolutely. It comes at random times, but usually there's a moment where people are like, fuck, I need to step my game up. If I want to evolve this to where I want to evolve it to, I need to reevaluate.
Yeah, and I think clearly, we talked about it earlier when I did that Allegiant Vets presentation. That was a huge aha moment for me, because it's like, oh, well, shit, you verified the problem you were trying to solve is actually a problem. And it's a problem that your audience didn't even know they had. So that makes it even more easy for you, because all you have to do is push on that pain point and really drive that home and just watch them come,
Yeah.
So I'd say those are the two big aha moments I had, other than, obviously ayahuasca is a cheat code. And I say that because there's still a ton of work you have to do, but it shows you the top of the damn mountain and how to get there. You just have to follow the fucking path. You know
do
what
the
I mean?
work. Yeah. On the path, like coming out of the military, going into entrepreneurship, were there things that you didn't expect to like as much as you do?
Yeah, the networking. I didn't expect to, forever and ever and ever, I thought I was an introverted person, which is absolutely not true. I'm very extroverted. I didn't realize I think because of all the things that I've now worked through and all the work I've done on myself, I was very much one of those people who would put on the face in public but not be okay inside.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I tended to think that I was an introvert, because nobody was really seeing the real me, if that makes sense. And, when I first started, I was like, I hate social media, like you said. I hate it. I hate it. Right? We're not from that generation. It just doesn't make sense to us.
We inherited it later in life.
And it's painfully obvious, because if you go look at the rest of my social channels, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, I have one for the nonprofit now. If you look at those, Twitter, I think I only have like 30 followers on there. I don't have more than 1,000 on any other platform. LinkedIn was the platform for me. I just stuck with it. And I understand that you should probably be in more places, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, fuck all of you. I know. I'm doing largely all of this on my own, and I'm almost 40, so I'm trying to play catch up with all the cool shit that's out there to do this more efficiently. But
it's changing every day.
But I think that piece of it, right? Like actually getting out there and finding out that there are loads of people who can give you value, or that you can provide value to, was really shocking to me. And I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I do. And it's been even more cool, because then you meet people who are like, you're a fucking super connector and you need to lean into that, because you can make loads of fucking cash doing that. And I'm like, okay, let's lean into this. And so, dude, I started everything I'm doing with the idea that I can have time and financial freedom. And I want to clearly define those. That means that, to me, financial freedom is me being able to go out onto the economy and spend a reasonable amount of money without having to look at my bank account or ever worry about it. That's what financial freedom is to me. And then, of course, time freedom is really easy to define. It's I control 100% of my time. If I don't want to do something, I'm not going to do it, and there are zero consequences for it. So when I started building all of that, I knew that's where I needed to get. And, through networking and talking to people, I get to do that every single day to build a business. I get to have conversation every day for a job, connect with people, add people to my network, do shit like this, podcast. That's not work. That's therapy, brother.
You're not wrong.
You know what I'm saying?
You're not wrong.
Like, how could I, that's mind blowing to me. You can really live a life that you want to live and get up every single day and enjoy what you do. Now, that's a blanket statement, I understand, because I'm human, and there are days where I'm like, I don't want to fucking do shit, right? Like, we're all going to have those, but 99.9% of the time when I get up and I finish working out or whatever, for the day, and I sit down at my computer to do my LinkedIn engagement and then start my meetings, it's like, I'm excited about that. I was excited to come on this show. I got another show at 1:00 today. I'm excited to go on that show and have another, 2-hour conversation with somebody. And then, I've got a meeting in between, that one and another one, and somebody reaching out to me to pick my brain on whatever they need help with. And it's like, I get to do this all day, every day. That's fucking cool.
Well, it's like you actually see like the impact of what you're doing. I don't know, like the the social component to this stuff is really what it's all about. I feel like a lot of people just can't. They don't
their head around it.
Yeah, they don't recognize it for what it is. And again, I don't blame them for that. And some people, to their credit, don't want it to have anything to do with it, and I completely respect that too. But once you double down on the social aspect of this, it can change. And yeah, I've witnessed it. I've watched my wife do it. I've watched so many of my other friends do it. Take this thing that they were passionate about and just be so consistent with it that ultimately they're doing it. It's making them money. It's reducing stress by adding some kind of ancillary income, and I don't know. It's a doable thing, and I think if nothing else, like for me, I like creating something. I like having. It used to be just music, and I would have to put out records on the timelines in my mind, and then I was like, you know what? That's cool and all, but that's not instant. I want this to be instant. I want this to be instant gratification. So I started doing this because it's like every week I can feel like, cool, I produced an episode.
Right.
I had a cool conversation with somebody, maybe learned something, a niche subject that I wanted to learn about, and I created something that there's a reward. It might be another year or two before I finish this record, but I know I today at least I got this done. I don't know. It's for me, it's like this simple, just consistent act of creating. It makes my brain so much easier to and willing to interact with the world around me.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I agree, man. It's awesome to just. A podcast serves so many purposes, right? Like you get to do it once a week, and you created something and you feel good about it, and it's instant gratification, but it's also delayed gratification in that this 2 hours worth of content is going to give you months worth of more content, but the same amount of work went into it. You know what I mean? Like how is that not cool?
That is actually, I've never thought about it like that, and that is a great point. Like after you've done it, you don't really have to do anything with it, and it will provide, people will find it and they'll get something out of it into the future as long as YouTube's still a thing.
Yep.
You don't really have to stay after it. I don't know, man. And the niche thing too, like, the internet is great because you don't need a million bajillion followers. Nope. You need a couple hundred people who really give a shit about what you do, and
that's the truth, because I can point you in the direction of several newsletter creators that are making millions of dollars off of 500 people. It's
crazy.
And I love what you said about the niches, man. Like, as obscure as whatever niche you're thinking of right now could be, there is a market for it. Somebody on the internet
somewhere out there in the world
will find you, and you will be shocked. I don't care if it's underwater basket weaving. If that's what you're into, create content around it, because people will find it. They will resonate with it. They will pay you money to be a part of it. There's no shortage of ideas that you can come up with out there. And I don't care if you're looking in your niche and like, well, there's all these other creators out here. Well, that's fine. Do something.
Start doing it.
Just an nth different. And I promise you, watch what I used to think like that. I used to think like, oh, that's too saturated, and I don't have anything to set myself apart. Well, sure I do. You know what I have to set myself apart? Me. Just me.
Yeah.
I'm
the thing. Yeah. I'm the thing that they'll make it different.
Yep. Tell my story. Tell you what I went through, how I got through it. That's enough of a difference.
Yeah, that's a great point. I jotted over here to the Choose Your Own Adventure University.
Did you find my college, the old Evergreen State College?
Yeah, so I'm interested. You said that was kind of a tangent. I'm interested to hear about this.
Yeah, man. So the Evergreen does not do a traditional grade system. So it's, when I say Choose Your Own Adventure, I genuinely mean they have an entire course catalog, and you build your schedule and your degree around what courses you want to take. So I transferred in with my associates after I finished flight school. So I have an associates of applied science and technology in professional pilot. So I have that degree. And of course, I was following, the traditional transition advice for veterans, which is, use your GI Bill, get a bachelor's degree, go find a corporate job, and be miserable for 40 years.
Cool.
So, it's a great plan. I highly recommend it. Joke. No, I don't. In fact, I'm very anti-job, and I pride myself on being largely unemployable because I know what it is to control my time now, and you're not going to lock me down in a career. So I had started the bachelor's program at the technical school that I was in. It was a bachelor's in operations management, and they had just launched it. I was a guinea pig, and they basically put me in like the capstone class, my first class of the bachelor's program. And I was like, this is fucking bullshit. I'm not doing this because I didn't understand anything, right? Like I had zero context, like a 2-year program, to do your capstone project for your bachelor's degree, borderline master's degree in operations management, and you're starting me with the capstone project. Like, of course, I'm not going to like this.
Yeah.
So I had a buddy that actually was my commercial instructor that I went to flight school with. He just finished earlier and got a CFI done, and then finished me for commercial. He had gone to Evergreen, and he's like, dude, Evergreen has a reputation for being kind of a hippie school and like it's very different. And so if you live up there for any amount of time, you kind of just get all the opinions about Evergreen in your head, and you just don't even consider it. And he went, he took a couple classes that first quarter or whatever, and he was like, dude, you should really check this out. It's pretty cool. So I did, man. I went up there, I transferred in, and I started picking business and psychology classes. And for 2 years, that's, in fact, you'll appreciate this. I actually took 2 quarters in a professional recording studio.
Oh,
so,
there you go.
So
yeah.
I actually got to, my final project, the second quarter, was to bring in a full band, drums, all of that, and record, mix, and master the whole thing.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
It was so much fun. I don't have any musical ability. I just have an ear for it. I'm really good at mixing and all of that, and I know what sounds good. I don't know how to explain it. So I had a blast with that, playing on, the actual recording console and patching things in and seeing people through the glass on a click track. It was awesome. But when you choose your own adventure, you just sign up for classes that are interested in you. They do have a couple of tracks, like if you want to get a bachelor's of science, then there are required classes that you have to take for that. But I largely was just exhausting the GI Bill and trying to get the bachelor's degree.
Making the juice worth the squeeze, yeah.
So the reason I really liked it, mainly because I could take what I was interested in, but also because it's not grade based, so that means you can't really sham out of doing the work. Like, you have to do the work, and the way you get your credits is you do a self-evaluation, your professor does an evaluation, and then you combine the two to do a joint evaluation, and that's what determines if you're going to get your credits or not. And so you're taking courses that are worth 12 credits, which is a lot for a class. And so you have to do the work because all of your merit is in those reviews. Right. So if you think you're going to pull the wool over the professor's eyes and you're going to write yourself this raving self-review, and then the professor is going to give you their review, they're not going to match up, and there's not going to be anything that aligns there. You're not going to get your credit. So I think in large part, it's really cool what they've got going on up there. And, while I was there, I came to find out that it's actually a really well-respected school. And a lot of people, a lot of companies on the East Coast prefer students from Evergreen. So it was just a cool experience, man. And I learned a ton. It was particularly challenging going to a school like that at 30 years old with life experience with a bunch of teenagers who, think that all corporations are bad. And
right. And while they're texting from their iPhone.
I know.
Yeah, sure.
So, I mean, that's Evergreen in a nutshell. It was really cool. And kind of was one of my first wake-up calls. One of the last classes I took was called So You Want to Be a Psychologist. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was an awesome course, man. I got to go out to the Western Psychological Association conference and for an entire week as like a field trip to actually go to these speeches and see these research psychology. I got to meet Philip Zimbardo, and it turned me on a lot to psychology. In fact, at the end of that course, I didn't give myself a very great self-review, and in fact got called out by the professor. She ripped it up and threw it on the floor and said, I don't understand why you have this opinion of yourself, because I see somebody completely different and somebody who is way more capable than they give themselves credit for. And she made me go rewrite it. But she encouraged me and that same guy that talked me into going to Evergreen to come together and do a research psychology paper to present to WPA to become, kind of one of the convention presenters for the following year. And so we did a paper on PTSD and the timeline perspective as written by Philip Zimbardo. And it's been several years, so I can't really remember how that all shook out, particularly because COVID ruined it for us. We ended up getting picked up to actually present at the conference. And that's kind of a one-way ticket into grad school. If you present at that conference, you will get an offer to go to a, depending on what your paper's about. If it's on the clinical side, you're probably going to get, an offer to go, some school for clinical psychology. And then ours was research psychology. And I was fascinated by that. I really like the neuro research and fMRI stuff and understanding the brain. So particularly, suffering from TBI and PTSD myself, that's fascinating to me, and all the work that's going into that. So we got picked up, and then COVID happened and they canceled the 100th anniversary conference and we never got to present, but it would have been kind of cool. I could have been finishing my PhD right now. Hindsight's 2020. I don't think I ever would have finished my PhD because it's 4 more years of school and I don't really have any aspirations of writing a book.
Yeah, sure.
But that's Evergreen, man. It was a great experience. If anybody lives in Olympia, Washington, and you're looking for a college, it really is a good one. It just don't buy into their kind of orientation propaganda that they push out there, because it's kind of bullshit and it's not going to do any favors for you in life.
Well, what I really like from what you're telling me about the experience, it sounds like there was an extra level of autonomy that was required that wouldn't necessarily be required at other schools. You were expected to, in your downtime, be pursuing the project or the assignment.
Well, and this really became very apparent to me in one of the last classes I took. I thought it was going to be easy. It was called walking, and it was. You're laughing, but it was. I don't even know how to describe this class, but I got so much out of this class. I ended up we read a book a week for 12 weeks, and these weren't small books. And then you would have to, obviously write something about it, but you would have to go on walks, long walks, and actually kind of reflect on this stuff and talk about that in your writings about these books. And these books were all about people who had taken long walks and discovered things about themselves. What? And I think that this is going to be insane to say, but I think that was probably the first time that ayahuasca, when I talk about the medicine was actually calling me. And I really think there's a lot of power in that. I'm still unpacking a lot of my experience with the ayahuasca and how it relates to that class, but I can see the connection there. And it's really fascinating, just kind of the way my life progressed and how I've ended up where I'm at and thinking about all these things.
Well, it's interesting. A class focused around reading books about walking or things that were discovered, revelations that were had while walking. I can't also help but think that maybe there's a component of nature, which also kind of ties into ayahuasca. Again, it's why you'd want to go to Mexico to do that and be surrounded by the indigenous plants and people. Oh yeah. I don't know if you feel or see any overlap there, but is nature a key component here?
Nature's a big thing, man. I find myself now randomly, I don't wear shoes very often anymore. And I do a lot of work at the computer, obviously, right? Trying to be an internet millionaire or whatever. But randomly, I'll just get up from my computer and I'll go spend 10 minutes walking around my backyard barefooted to ground myself. Yeah. I don't know where it started. It's not intentional. I mean, I'm sure it's intentional now, but it just started happening one day and it continues to happen, and I don't fight it. I'll even go walk around when it's pouring down rain out there.
Sure.
Just to be in nature. I start my days every day, every single day. Yes, every day. The first thing I do is put my shoes and socks on, strap the dogs up, and we're out the door for a 4-mile walk every single day. And largely those are conducted without headphones, trying to be present and hear everything that's going on around me, whether that be the traffic or the birds.
True awareness.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, and it's how I stay mindful. It's how I do work on myself. If I don't start my day like that, I'm gonna have a bad day. I've skipped out on it enough at this point, which is not very much, that I know that's how I need to start my days. And I'm kind of playing with my routine now because I had a back surgery in January. And I really miss the gym and the atmosphere and lifting weights. So today I actually was up earlier and went to the gym instead of walking. But the movement and just some part of being outside as soon as I wake up is a staple in my life.
Yeah, no, dude, those are the past 2 years too. I've kind of come to a similar revelation. I was doing a lot of work. I had very little free time, and then a lot of the tangential jobs I had just stopped being jobs, and that turned out to be a really great thing because it freed up a lot of time for me, and it made me refocus at least a little portion of my day to doing certain things that I enjoy. And there's something about a routine, there's something about a consistency with a routine, and there's something about consistency with a routine with the goal, whether it's working out. I do at least an hour of exercise every day. I have TRX bands right behind me too, so when my back starts feeling stiff, I'll just get up and I'll do some exercises. Water. I've been chugging. I've been making it a force of habit to go through 3 of these. This is 32 ounces, 96 total a day. That has been, in the past 2 years, I've been better about that than I've ever been. And like the first thing in the morning, I'll drink 32 ounces of water. It's better than a cup of coffee. My entire body wakes up. The coffee might just wake my brain up, but the water, like my whole body's like, all right, I'm ready to fuck shit up.
Dude,
let's do this.
A gallon a day, that's minimum for me. And in the summer here in Florida, obviously it's way more than that.
You're sweating a gallon a day.
Oh yeah. And you're right. I now have to earn my coffee. I'm a coffee snob. My wife, I have to thank for that, because she was in the coffee industry in Portland, and
that's the top of the top right there,
she
buddy.
turned me on to like real fancy, $21 a pound coffee, OCR type stuff, and I really love a good single origin. But I've only ever been a 1 cup a day guy. So now, largely it's 2.5 hours that I've been awake before I've had coffee. I've exercised, I've earned it, you know what I mean? And so, usually when I sit down at my computer to do my LinkedIn engagement or whatever that looks like for the day is when I have my cup of coffee before meetings start, and then it's water the rest of the day. I've started incorporating, just to change it up a little bit, because everything in moderation, including moderation, like sugar-free Dr. Pepper, because I'm a Dr. Pepper fucking nut, but like 1 a day max, and it's never 1 a day. It's like 1 every 4 days. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 12-pack lasts 2 months.
About a month. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Well, and also like I looked the other day because I wanted to get, they've got a new sugar-free cherry, Dr. Pepper cherry. And I'm like, this is gonna be awesome. And it's like $11 for a 12-pack. I'm like, nah, we're not doing that. Water's free. I'm already paying a bill for that. I'll just continue to drink water. Exactly.
Yeah, my wife's better about it than I am, but she's kind of the same way. Like Diet Coke is the vice, but there's like a period of time where we'll have a 12-pack in there, and then we just won't.
Yeah.
We'll just, we'll reach whatever max we got to, and we'll just continue on with water. And then at some point in the future, she'll get a craving again, and we'll get it.
Yeah, we're terrible hosts. Like, if you ever come to my house, like,
you want water? We've got water.
We've got water and water. Well, what about snacks? No, we don't have that either. Like
frozen, we've got frozen water.
Right? Yeah, you can have ice cubes for a snack if you want, but yeah, we don't. That's not us, man. We're just not that anymore. Before we would have had all kinds of potato chips and cookies and candies, and like Halloween candy too, particularly because we're moving into that time of the year.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I fuck up some Twix and Reese's.
Give me that family bag, please.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Yeah, a peanut M&Ms. Yeah. I'm in. But yeah, man, we don't do that anymore. And you're right. It's like, people think your fridge is is empty. And it's like, nah, man, we've got an abundance of everything that we need. And that's another tool, right? The abundance mindset. I don't know if you've played with that yet or not.
No, dude, when I lost those jobs, that's I didn't know that's what it was when I was doing it, but it was, my thing began to be want less, expect nothing.
Yeah.
That was just like my mantra. I looked around and I was like, you know what? I already have all the shit I need. I've got all the shit I need to make music. I've got all my guitars. Got my wife. We've got our dogs. There's food in our fridge. We've got an apartment. Why am I stressing about more money so I can buy more stuff that we don't really need?
Trap.
That's the trap. They want you stuck in that forever. And I was just like, fuck this. Let me just take stock of the things that are around me and reinvest into those. Like, I've been playing guitar since I was 7, and I'm going to say this because I want to continue to inspire you to keep playing with it. But
I'm not going to stop, man. I will learn how to play.
Like, look, I played for 20 years, and I hit the wall at 10 years. And 2 years ago, I was like, I'll just have to accept that I'll never be able to play some things. And when my schedule opened up and I had that free time, one of the things that was important to me was an hour of guitar a day. And every hour since I started tracking it, every day that I've had an available hour, I've put at least that hour in. I think this year I'm at 500 hours.
Good for you.
But it's just I'm waking up, I'm drinking my water, I'll have my tea. I used to be a big coffee person, but I cut that out. I strictly went to tea because it's mostly water still. I do like about 30 minutes on Duolingo. A bunch of different languages.
I'm at an 80-day streak on that right now.
I find that wakes my brain up. I'll do that before I go to work. That's like one of the first things I'm doing to like get my brain functioning. And the guitar, and you might not be able to do some stuff now, but it's so crazy. Some things there are no cheat codes, and some things you just gotta fucking practice.
Yeah, it's the grind, right?
It's not glorious, and it's really boring, and it's often painful. But like, I made that shift, and I really was like doubling down on playing guitar as frequently as possible. And dude, I'm able to do shit a year and a half later, 2 years later, that I convinced myself I would never be able to do. But
I'm very aware that that's my mindset about guitar right now, and I very much use it as an excuse. There will come a time where I do what you do, and I build that solid hour in there and just suck it up and just suck. And it's my biggest problem is like the coordination of the hands, right? Like, I was a drummer growing up, so like I know that I have rhythm, but I cannot fucking get a strum pattern to save my fucking life, and I hate it. And then I'm also a metalhead, so like everything I want to play,
super
I'm
fast
interested in,
strumming and picking.
It's strumming and picking. It's alternate tunings. I don't even understand standard tuning yet. You know what I mean? So it's like I have not done myself any favors. I can't just go learn fucking Wonderwall, right? Like, I've got to learn Nothing Else Matters or fucking, like
Mary Had a Little Lamb sometimes.
Right, yeah.
Well, and that's that was where I was stepping on my toes. I was trying to go too big too fast. And another thing I realized is that even if I am trying to play a song that there's no chance I'm going to play it, I just play it slow. And sometimes I have to play it so slow it doesn't even sound like a song.
Yeah.
But I play it, I can get it to where I can play it slow, and then I can play it a little faster.
Yeah.
And because I played it slow, I'm very used to like when the pick should be hitting the thing. All I'm saying is the big one that no one told me that I was pissed when I found out
is slow down.
Do it slower.
Yeah.
If you get stuck doing something, however fast you're trying to do it half that speed, and in 20 minutes you'll be playing it at full speed. It is that simple.
It's so funny that you're bringing this up right now, because the last 4 or 5 days, slow down is what's been coming up for me. Slow down in just about everything.
Take your time.
it's
slow down.
How do we overlook that? It's just a simple little action, right? Just slowing down. And where does that? I know this is your show, and I shouldn't be asking questions, but like,
no, go right ahead. I'm curious
to know, like, where do we get this? Like, we need to do everything fast right now, right? Like, I mean, because it's very prevalent in everything that we do. I think,
yeah,
right? And
you're not wrong.
So, how are we overlooking slowing down? If you just, I really did that this morning when I went back to the gym, because I'm trying to like ease myself back into this, wake my muscles up. I just did a nice kind of lackadaisical back day. It wasn't really lackadaisical. It smoked me, but what I used to be able to do in an hour ended up taking me, an hour and 45 minutes this morning. And I was very intentional about doing it slow and focusing on eccentric kind of exercises to like wake everything up and not re-injure myself. And it was like, why can't I do this in other areas? For like guitar, for example, that is my main problem. I want to do everything fast. I want to do everything fast because I have an ear for music and because it doesn't sound right if I don't, right? And I know what wrong sounds like and I hate it so much, right? And so if I would just slow down, like you said, and trying to learn a song, I learned I don't know if you're familiar with CKY, but
of course, yeah.
I love, what's required. I can't remember their most popular song, but that riff, I know you'll know. I taught myself that. Like when I first picked up a guitar, I taught myself that, and I could play it accurately and well, and that's not really an easy one to play. There's a lot of skill involved in that. But like I can't play something as simple as Something in the Orange right now because I won't slow the fuck down, chunk it into little bars, so each fucking tab, and get that till I can't get it wrong, and then add the next one. I don't know why I have this like barrier, and I'm very aware of it, which pisses me off even more. You know what I mean? Because I know what I need to do. I don't have
it doesn't make it easier to accept it.
Right.
It's like, dude, I'm telling you. And it, like, I come from a musical household. Like, it was modeled, practice was modeled for me. My dad was always practicing piano. But it took me 20 years to be like, dude, you're never going to get better unless you practice. You can never cheat that. And part of practice is sucking. In fact, most of practice is sucking.
Right.
And you just have to, for me, I hated that because it would make me depressed and make me even feel further away from the goal, even though I was getting closer. But now what I love when I can't play something, because it's like, okay, I know the formula. Let's slow it down and if I have to work on this for 2 weeks, so fucking be it, because once I get it and once it clicks, then it's just a matter of doing it faster, and doing it faster is way easier than just getting it right in the first place. I would recommend Songster. I don't know if you've ever used Songster, but it's
I have Ultimate Guitar Chords or something like that. I guess I paid for like the lifetime thing of it years and years ago, so it just stays on my phone. I don't know why I don't use it more.
Well, that'll give you the tabs, and Songster will too, but what I like Songster is that you can play back a MIDI version of the track. You can play back the actual song version. You can speed it up, slow it down. You can loop certain parts.
Okay, that's really cool. The loop would help, I think. It's
dude. It was a game changer when as I'm going through the list of songs I could never play and would want to play them. They have a huge list of songs on there. And you just go pick it out, you select what instrument you want to work with, and you can highlight the section and just you play it until you can play it. And when you can play it, you highlight a little bit more, and then you play that till you can play that.
Now, I tell you what, man, you've inspired me in this show. I'm going to start practicing at least 30 minutes every day.
Love that. I love that.
From here on forward. And I'll tell you why, because I've got this kind of goal for myself. It's silly. I think it's silly, but I want to just be that guy in a park somewhere on a picnic table with my case open that can just go out there for an hour and a half and just play music for people. Because I know when I see people playing live music out in a park or something, I always stop. It always makes me feel better. And I just feel like that's just like the easiest way you could just go out there and like make somebody's day better. And
it's universal language. Every culture has music.
Yeah, everyone.
Again, that's not coincidence.
No.
Okay, it's like it's super important. The reason I would even suggest you doubling down on that is because for me, dude, the music is my meditation.
Yeah.
And I do stretches every day. I have to to operate, to function on a daily basis, I have to constantly keep my brain in check. When I sit down to play the guitar, dude, it's freedom. True freedom. Big T truth. And it's just me and the thing. And I'm the only barrier to I don't know, like really trying to use the power of music as like, not only am I practicing to get better at playing guitar so I can do cooler things, but this is like my therapy.
I agree with that.
This moment is just for me. I'm washing myself in sound.
Yep.
And I'm improving my ability to do that. This is like a feedback's a good positive feedback loop, you know?
That resonates with me, man. And I do. I'm going to, at least 30 minutes, 5 days a week from here on out, I will sit down and...
Love that.
Do me a favor. Will you do me a favor? Will you send me a couple of practice routines that you think would be, and mind you, I know basic cowboy chords right now. That's about what I know. I don't really know scales anymore. I've kind of forgotten them. I do have some stuff around, but if you send that to me, I will just grind it out for the next however long it takes me to master this shit. I think really, I've gone to guitar teachers. I've had 3. I've only had one that I really resonated with, and he did it in a group setting. I know I need more one-on-one. Hearing you talk about guitar and hearing you talk about hitting that wall at 10 years or whatever it was, and then hearing you talk about it was really, and nobody told you it's about slowing down. Not a single one of my teachers ever told me to slow down.
Nobody.
And I think had I found a teacher or someone to frame it to me like that, would have been kind of an epiphany, if you will, in my guitar experience, because I have a fucking $900 fucking Taylor back there that just it sounds so good, and I know what it's capable of sounding like, and it pisses me off because I can't make it sound as good as it should. I can't do it justice. And I got a Schecter sitting right over here, and this guitar is one of my favorite. It's so smooth when you play it. I love this thing so much, and it means a lot to me because my wife actually got it for me for Christmas one year, and I can't make it sound like it should, and that pisses me off, you know?
Yeah, well, it is super frustrating, and it's hard. Like this, it's a hard thing to learn how to play an instrument.
It's so hard. It's so hard. And I always default back to the excuse, well, if my fucking parents would have put me in guitar lessons when I was a kid, this would have been so much easier for me, right? Well, that's a fucking cop-out. Right?
It is.
Like, I can do hard shit. I've done hard shit my whole life.
Debatably way harder things, okay?
I don't know, man. I think guitar is pretty fucking hard.
No. Military service, 100% harder than learning to play guitar in just about every way. But it can be a similar level of barrier to overcome in your mind. It can seem as insurmountable as how am I going to survive, basic training or any challenge.
I ought to double down on it and just like record myself practicing for that half hour and put it on the internet.
Look, I'm telling you this much. I guess it was like closer to 2 years now, but I only really started tracking about a year ago. 2 years ago, I was like, I'm going to pretend like I know nothing. Because me pretending like I already know all this shit is preventing me from learning things, or even more so, correcting the mistakes that I'm making now.
Yeah.
So for 6 months, before I really was playing anything, all I did was run major and minor scales. 6 months,
that's so
an
miserable.
Hour every day. Yeah,
That's
was
so miserable.
It was.
But that's what it takes, right?
That's what it takes. And I didn't realize how many things, the reason I was hitting walls is because I was doing shit wrong.
Right.
I was trying to do it too fast. And when I went back to the very beginning and did it slow, it really, there was like an exponential. I hit like 6 months, and then I was like, oh shit, even just after doing the scales, what I would do before is already sounding way better. And then it was a matter of, then the positive feedback loop really kicks in. It's like, oh, okay, now I can do this stuff that I used to think is hard. Now it's too easy. So what's hard for me now?
Right.
And finding what that new bar is, and then getting there, and then being like, well, how do I make this harder?
I'm going to take your word for it, man. I will practice major and minor scales every day for 6 months, and we'll see what happens. Because I know what you're saying, and like, to me, like, that's the foundation of guitar playing is the scales, right? Like, that's the basics. It's just like what
for
we talk
mobility
about
between the strings. Yeah.
and it's what we talk about, like in the Army, in the infantry particularly, right? Like, the only difference between a conventional infantryman and a special operations guy is training and money. And they master the basics. They master the basics. The same basics that I know, they just practice them way fucking more with way more ammunition for way more hours because they have way more money. And so it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. It's the same thing with, you know, we've been talking about business and everything today, and like how people don't see the grind to get to the 4,000 followers or whatever, right? Like, all you see is where they're at now. You don't see all the work that they put in to master those basics. The sitting down every single day for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, and engaging with people and DMing people and commenting on people's feeds, right? That's the kind of shit that it takes. The hours and hours and hours of, you know, creating a landing page, adjusting your copy, testing that, and then redoing it, right? Like, all of that is the basics, and that's the shit that matters. And so I don't know why I couldn't associate that to guitar, but obviously, you know, spending 2.5 hours with you has been beneficial for me because
I'm an enabler. When it comes to like creative expression, I'm
enabler. So grateful for meeting you, because guitar is really it's like that Achilles heel for me. It's like that one thing that I want so bad, but I don't believe in myself enough to, like, you know, I don't have an ear for this, or I don't understand music theory, or I can't get the rhythm on my strumming hand right. You know, like, all of those are excuses. I can learn this just like everybody else before me has learned it.
Well, and you know, I can't read music. That's one of the things I'm trying to, like, reteach myself, because I built up so many barriers in my mind. Like, I'll never be able to read music well, and, you know, I need to be able to look at a sheet of paper and know exactly what's going on. You don't need that to play guitar.
No.
You don't. That has no bearing on, especially, like, mastering the motor skills, like understanding the notes and what combinations of notes and what modalities. That's useful. I'm not saying that isn't worth learning, but you can't do any of that shit until you can play the fucking scales.
Right.
You know, once you know what each of those strings are, and once you know where a couple octaves are, once you start handling that thing every day, it just becomes like any other tool, an extension of you as you're using it. In the same way, you know, social media is the digital tool that you use, you know?
Well, I think what I'm putting in my mind right now is knowing that if I master those scales, there's a situation in where I could just walk up to other people playing music, and just knowing the scales, I could jam with those people, because that's enough knowledge on guitar to be able to fit into something like that. And that's really cool when you think about it like that. I've never thought about it like that until we had this conversation.
Just go back to the beginning and take it fucking slow. I guarantee you that if you did that for a year, you'd be better. It would be impossible for you to practice even 20 minutes every day and not be better at the end of that year.
Hey, we're doing it, man. You've enabled me and convinced me.
Well, and it's therapy, and like your whole thing. What I love about your whole approach is the focus on the awareness of your own mental health and empowering other people to focus on their own mental health, and utilizing the readily available tools, not pharmaceuticals, not synthetics, not a synthesized dopamine hit, actual dopamine hits, like that your brain produces naturally because you're doing the right thing. You're serving whatever your purpose is at that moment. Just look at the guitar as another form of your therapy. You're using music. This you might go to your actual therapist for therapy. Then you sit down with your guitar for some music therapy.
I love that, man. No, you're absolutely right. And you're talking about all these readily available tools. It's what I talk about all the time. And the one we haven't mentioned yet that everybody can use starting right now is a gratitude practice.
Absolutely. Yes. 100%.
I love doing this with fresh transitioning veterans who come to me that are struggling. I just did this a couple of weeks ago with one of the guys. I got off the call with him, and I ended the call by saying, I want you to go in the other room, and I want you to tell your wife that you're grateful for her, and then walk out of the room. And then I want you to text me back and tell me what the result of that is. Dude, he called me back almost crying, like, dude, I've never felt so much lighter in my life, and my wife is crying, and she is so like appreciative because it came out of nowhere. And it's like, if you start every day, but I used to get up in the morning and say 5 things I was grateful for out loud. And it could be, I'm grateful that I woke up. I'm grateful that I don't have any pain today. I'm grateful that I had a pillow to sleep on, and I'm grateful for my dogs, right? Like, if you just express the things that you're grateful for, and then you start coupling that with the abundance mindset, like I'm sitting here looking at my desk and there's probably $10,000 worth of equipment. You know, like, I have more than I need. Yeah,
You're thriving.
I'm thriving, right?
Yeah.
Compared to some of the places in the world that I've been, you know, and it's like, when you start coupling all those things together, and like what you've just done for me is teaching me how to apply those to the guitar, right? Like, I love music. Music is a huge part of my life. There's been periods of time in my life where I didn't have music, and it's, I think, caused mental health problems for me. I love music.
Right there with you, yeah.
You know, and I primarily am a metalcore kind of guy. I don't know what you would call the metal genre these days. Really into kind of Sleep Token stuff, but then also into the really heavy stuff, you know, also. But I can listen to jazz, and I can listen to, you know, blues, and I can listen to country music, and all of it, particularly in a live setting, is even better, right? Because I think there's something about, like what you said, about bathing
Special
yourself in the
energy.
sound and the vibrations and all of that. But if I haven't been looking at guitar, I've been looking at it as an obstacle, a challenge that's really hard. I haven't been looking at it as something that I can add as a tool to my own therapy. And so thank you for reframing that for me, because now I'm motivated to actually pick up the guitar and practice for more than 2 fucking minutes on a couple of chords.
Well, it's embrace the suck.
Yeah,
Embrace the cringe. And you already had to do this with social media. This is not something you can't do. Right. Except it's a little bit harder because, like, you're the one that keeps you accountable in this scenario. Like,
yeah,
social media, all the other people on social media are the ones that kind of keep you accountable. But it's the same thing. You know, I have been doing music I've been doing music for my entire life. The first time I was in a recording studio, I was 10 years old, because my band won like a battle of the bands, and we got studio time. I love this shit. And it's the times where I don't make music and some kind of expressing myself musically a part of my experience, I suffer greatly. And it's I do the same thing so many times. I've been like, I'm gonna sell all this shit, fuck it, I give up. But then I look around and it's like, dude, I've got everything I need.
Yeah.
I've got more recording power in my computer than Led Zeppelin ever had, ever.
Isn't that crazy to think
It's
about?
ridiculous. In our phones, there's more technology for recording than they ever had access to.
And now with your phone, you can recreate their sound to a T, and nobody knows the difference, which is even way cooler.
Well, it's again, like, those are all things that should inspire you. We have access to these things. Why not utilize them? It's easy for a long time too. Like, I got caught in the trap of like, oh, I need to make music and it needs to make money, and if it's not making money, it's useless. And at some point in my mid-20s, I was like, no, I just make music because I have to make music, whether it's making me money or not, whether I'm selling records or not. I have to do this. This is out of my own self-preservation first. Right. That's why I do this shit. And then anything that comes after that is just a little cherry on top. But you know, we could get into like a whole other tangent, and I've had guests on the show who've like done serious research into like using sound to actually induce mental states.
Oh, that's another rabbit hole that I'd love to go down with you at some point, because all this stuff, man. The breath work rabbit hole is a good one.
Sure,
too.
yeah, absolutely.
Man, like all of these are the modalities that we should be looking into to heal ourselves. I'm with you 100%. I just saw a damn ad the other day for this giant Tibetan singing bowl that you can stand in and bathe yourself in these.
Hell yeah.
I think it's a lower frequency vibration.
It'd have to be, a bowl that big.
But man, I'm like fascinated by that, because I do believe that's another takeaway I got from ayahuasca is magic's real. Magic is fucking
for
real.
Sure.
And everything is connected in some way, shape, or form or another. And like, when you understand that and you start leaning into that, dude, there's some cool shit that happens out there.
Well, it gets real weird. It gets real weird when you start to think like, maybe I'm not just a human walking around in empty space. Like maybe all the things that we see are just different spectrums of wave energy.
Yeah.
And we're like, if we could see all the waves around us, it'd be like we were underwater.
Yeah.
You know, sound especially. I used to work a lot of live events too. Like I love live shows. The energy and definitely like getting washed full effect in front of like a major sound system is like, I just love that.
I used to want to be a sound engineer.
Yeah,
I really, when I graduated high school, I wanted to, before I had joined the Army, so I joined the Army at 17, I'd applied to the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences.
Oh, nice.
Tempe,
yeah.
and I actually got accepted. And I had already signed the contract when I got the acceptance letter, so I was like, well, I'm fucked. I got to go to the Army. You know, hindsight, if I'd have known what I know now, I could have got out of that contract and nothing would have happened to me, but I did, man. I've always been fascinated by that stuff, and like when I took that Evergreen, when I took those two recording courses.
Yeah, you said you loved it.
Oh man, well, because like Terry Setter is amazing. I don't know if you know that name. He's a pretty big deal in like the producer world for a long time. He's worked with a lot of big artists, but he taught the class, and we got to go deep into like how the lower frequency sound waves work and how you can invert those to cancel each other out and get different sounds, and like how sound actually works and the wavelengths that they travel on, and like what you can actually hear versus what you can't hear. And I was fascinated by all of that stuff, man. And then learning how to use EQs to cut different sounds out of your mix that
manipulating
you want.
the sound.
And it's like, man, this is really freaking cool. And when you understand it, you're like, I wonder how this affects everything else.
Well, it does. Like I have always wondered, like, why was I always drawn to the studio stuff? And it's just because I get washed in sound. I don't know. I had a guest on here. Her name's Mandara Cromwell, and she started this company called Psychedelic. And Psychedelic makes these devices that basically just vibrate. They pump sound waves into your body. And when you start looking into this rabbit hole, you'll quickly realize that bathing people in sound baths, that's another like ancient practice. A lot of the temples that are built are actually resonators.
Yeah.
Like they're supposed to be full of monks chanting, literally bathing each other in sound, and the sound induced mental states. That back then was magic, like you were saying, but now it's science. It's measurable science.
There's more of those closer than even the Eastern world, right? Central America's got a bunch.
Oh yeah,
of those.
no, dude.
Like
most of those, like a lot of the megalithic structures we see, a lot of them are just that. They're resonator temples. They were temples where you would go in and there'd be a million monks chanting, or all the people chanting, and it was constructed in a way to reinforce, like I don't know if you're familiar at all with cymatics. It's like it's like the visualization of sound. I'll pull something up here real quick. But there were a couple people that were like the eminent leaders in thought. One guy's named Dr. Hans Jenny, and the other guy's name is Peter Guy Manners. And Peter Guy Manners is who Mandara Cromwell studied under. And Peter Manners in the 80s, he had a facility in the UK that was just treating people with sound for all sorts of wellness. And now this is cymatics, and what you're seeing here is sound visualized.
I like
and basically if like you talked about a Tibetan bowl, so imagine that this circle is actually a top-down view of a Tibetan bowl, and in that Tibetan bowl there's a bunch of water, and they've just resonated it, and they've run that stick around the outside to make the construction of the bowl resonate at its frequency, which is, again, simple math. That's another thing I love about the physics of sound. A lot of this stuff is really simple. And if you were to look at the water on the top of that bowl as it was resonating, that's what it would look like. This is sand on a metallic plate, but it's the same concept. It's a metallic plate that's being resonated at a specific frequency, and every specific frequency kind of has a signature.
This is cool, like when they do music with the fire tubes and the different flames. I love that stuff. That's physics. Because you're getting the kind of the EQ visualization of the entire...
100%. You see the physics of sound and you realize it's really not that complex.
And where that's sick.
Yeah, where this gets trippy is once you start looking at enough cymatic images, and you'll start to see platonic solids, you'll start to see stained glass windows, you'll start to see sunflowers, nature. This is a turtle right here, but I've seen very good ones with like this like this compared to a sunflower and how the seeds spiral in as they grow.
No, dude, this is, man,
But
I could rabbit hole on this.
No,
all day.
100%. You totally should. You should definitely watch the pod where I had Mandara on. But like this one, you can see this. That's if I could zoom in on this picture anymore, which I don't think I can. You would see that what that actually is. It's not a 6-pointed star. It's like a 3-dimensional object. You're just seeing like that 3-dimensional object cut in half.
What's cool about all of this stuff too is in psychedelic kind of, I don't know, trips, whatever you want to call them, a lot of people talk about the visuals.
Yeah.
Well, these are really, really close to the visuals that that I experienced.
Well, and some might even suggest, what you're interacting with in that space is like you've got like maybe you're seeing the waves around us.
I think
like maybe
your
perception has shifted just enough for you to kind of start to see the fluid dynamics of all of the wave energy around us.
Yeah, because there was a point in one of my ceremonies where I could see, hear, and feel the frequencies that the mountains, for example, vibrate at. The trees, the wood from the floor of the ceremonial space called the Maloka, the fabric mattress that we were laying on, like all of that stuff has a wavelength and a color and a sound associated with it. And I was really shocked, at least my interpretation of it, from what I saw to like what I expected the mountains, for example, would vibrate. Like I saw a yellow higher frequency, and I thought it would have been like, because a mountain's giant, I thought it would have been like a lower, darker frequency. No. The trees, you probably would associate with like green, right? Now they were blue, and they were a lower frequency. It's weird stuff, man. Like I said, there's a lot to unpack with that journey, and we could rabbit hole for hours and hours. Well,
let's we're gonna have to wrap up. I've got another pod I've got to do here in a little bit too. I need just kind of a little bit of buffer to handle some stuff in between, but let's book another one. Let's do a deep dive on just the experience. Your ayahuasca, like the whole, just kind of map out in more detail, like the whole experience for you.
It's going to get weird, man.
I welcome it.
Yeah, it's going to get really weird. So, I'm happy to do that, man. I don't get to talk about that stuff enough. So,
that would be great. That would be fucking great.
Yeah, brother.
Well, dude, Adam Peters, thank you so much for joining. I just want to give you a quick moment here at the end to, again, shout out the things you want to shout out. I'll include all the links that you mentioned in the description, too, so...
Yeah, man, I just want people to live better lives and avoid the mistakes that I've made. So if anything I've said here today resonates with you, you can find all of my content mainly on LinkedIn, but the best way to get it is through my website, thestrategicveteran.com. You don't have to be a veteran for me to interact with you or to give you knowledge or to help you. I genuinely want to help everybody. If you do want to join the paid community and you are a veteran, you're more than welcome to do that. We're opening the doors again on October 1st, so raise the price a little bit because the value's gone up, but $50 a month. Come interact with other veteran entrepreneurs. Get actionable advice where you won't be judged, where you can be vulnerable and feel like you're a part of something. And then, like I said, anybody else that wants help or just wants to talk to me, please reach out. I will talk to anyone and everyone and do my best to help you in whatever way I can.
I love that. Mr. Adam Peters, thank you so much for joining us. This has been the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast, and we're out of here, everybody. Thank y'all.
This has been the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. The end. With your host, James Oliva. Executive producers, Clint G and James Oliva. That's obnoxious. Sound design, mix, and master by James Oliva. Literally no one cares. For more Totally Legitimate Business, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Totally Legitimate Business or add us on TikTok at TLB Pod. When will this end? Thank you for listening. Now get back to work. Move it along, buddy.